There are those who believe that life here began out there, far across the universe, with tribes of humans who may have been the forefathers of the Egyptians, or the Toltecs, or the Mayans. Some believe that there may yet be brothers of man who even now fight to survive somewhere beyond the heavens. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner, episode number 202. And this will be a celebration of Battlestar Galactica, the 45th anniversary from 1978. And with me to discuss this classic series is my friend, my co-host, the one and only Mr. Ross Amico. Ross, welcome.
Thank you, Roy. I was expecting Patrick McNee. Mrs. Peel,
well, I would have loved to have had Patrick McNee, but
but we'll have to settle for Roy.
You have to settle for me, Ross. Hey, how's it going?
Going all right, Roy. How's it going with you?
Good.
Keeping it
Ross,
short. Yeah.
What's that?
Keeping it short. The short answer.
The short answer. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I am ecstatic to be talking about this show tonight, Battlestar Galactica. I mean, the fact that we are in alignment with the 45th anniversary, not only to the date, but to the day that it actually premiered. It premiered on Sunday, September 17th, 1978. And today is Sunday, September 17th, 2023. So how about that?
How about that? So 12-year-olds across the United States were all psyched for Battlestar Galactica, this 3-hour science fiction epic on ABC. And then we get 2.5 hours into it. There's a news flash.
World events, boss.
the news breaks in. And it was the Begin and Sadat, Camp David Accord was signed, and it took them over an hour to report that to us. As all the 12-year-old kids are out there begging with their parents to let them stay up to watch the end of Battlestar Galactica. So they're up till midnight. It was like watching the Ten Commandments. Up until midnight watching this 3-hour movie.
So tell me, were you waiting for Commander Adama to throw the Holy Stones?
Yeah, exactly. Well, he may as well have been, since he was Moses anyway, leading the 12 tribes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was. Yeah, and I want to give a thank you to the Hague out there, John Hague, who actually went out of his way to send to both Ross and myself copies of the original broadcast from ABC back from 1978. So thank you, John. We much appreciated it. I will say that it definitely shows signs of being from 1978 from the copy that you sent, but you know what? It was very much appreciated.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, the whole news interruption was clipped out, so I couldn't sit there and suffer through the reliving the trauma of the. It's like, who needs peace in the Middle East? We need our Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. Hey, I want to welcome some of the viewers that are out there that are joining us, and I see Randy Lee's out there joining us, and his first comment is "frack me." Welcome, Randy. Good to see you out there.
Yeah, but he only gets office rates. Yeah.
And Martin is joining us. Martin's joining us from New York, and he's saying by the laws of Cobalt. Welcome, Martin. Good to see you out there. Jerry Seward is joining us. Jerry, welcome. And Claudia Combs is also joining us. Claudia, welcome to the show. Great to see you out there. Colin is joining us. Colin is joining us from the UK. Welcome, Colin. And he also, I see, and Jerry's commenting too, saying pretty much how I opened the show. So
wow, I typed the whole thing out.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and actually, I actually cut out the one part. There's actually an extra line.
Yeah, about the designers of the Great Pyramids, right?
Yep. So I did the abridged version.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they only used that in the first episode, or first couple episodes, I think, and then they trimmed it down.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did. Christian's joining us from
Hi, Christian.
from Canada. Hey, Christian, welcome. And let me see here. Hey, Mary Beth is joining us. Mary Beth is joining us from Massachusetts.
Hi, Mary Beth.
Hey, Mary Beth, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. So yeah, this is pretty exciting. I was really hoping, and I was going to kind of surprise you, Ross, but I'll just put it out there. Joe Metz, your cousin, may join us for 15 minutes or half an hour, schedule permitting on his end.
Yeah.
So just to let you know. Now I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make it or not, but
yeah. Well, it would be good to talk to him. Good to see him. It was very influential for the both of us. I guess I could leave it in case he pops in, but yeah. Let's just say we were all. This is from an era before we were glutted with sci-fi.
mm-hmm.
After Star Wars, we were hungry for this stuff. So Galactica was much anticipated. It's not like now where it seems like every week, something hits the movies. There's another television series streaming somewhere. So
yeah, science fiction was few and far between. Granted, the shows were out there, but it almost felt like, I don't want to say a privilege, but it was something really to look forward to if there was an attempt at sci-fi. Yeah. Now, granted, at the time when before this television series came out, there was a lot of publicity surrounding around this. I mean, in fact, Starlog magazine, I always like to give a shout out to Starlog, and I was going to kind of hold off on that, but I'm actually going to just go right to it. There were two Starlogs. The one specifically, I actually remember, I was in the 7th grade when the first one came out, Starlog issue number 17, and it was just talking about this series that was going to be launched on ABC on Sunday nights, and there was just a lot of press coverage. TV Guide actually had a cover that was devoted to Battlestar Galactica, which was a drawing. Well, actually, it was almost like a painting, and it had Lauren Green, who was Commander Adama, and it also had Richard Hatch as Captain Apollo, and Dirk Benedict also on the cover, featured with Lauren Green. And actually, I have saved TV guides over the years, and for the longest time, I actually had a mint copy of that, but I think it's unfortunately suffered, and I no longer have it. And then, of course, episode 27, or excuse me, issue number 27 of Starlog dealt with the ship that was actually from War of the Gods. And that was with the 2-part episode that actually had Patrick McNee in it, which was Count Ibley. Yeah, so that came later.
Yeah, they just seemed like they used him in whatever capacity they could. He must have just signed like a blank contract or something. It's like, whenever you need me to do something on the show, I'll play it.
Yeah, I mean, he had such a distinct voice, though. His voice was great.
Yeah, yeah.
It so worked. And, of course, Patrick McNee was not only the narrator at the beginning of the episode, but he was also the voice of the Imperious leader in the movie, as well as the television series, which was really, really cool.
So the villain was narrating the series.
Yeah. It's an interesting twist.
And later you find out it was really the devil that's narrating the series. My goodness.
Again, an interesting twist.
Yeah. Well, I guess the new Avengers had just gone off, so he said, "Oh, well, I'll do Galactica." But yeah, it's, as far as science fiction series, I mean, there was nothing of this scope. I mean, as far as the budget, it was like a film budget that they would spend on this series, and it was all on screen. They got John Dykstra to do the special effects, fresh off of Star Wars. Ralph McQuarrie was the conceptual artist, as he was on Star Wars, and it was pretty eye-popping, and it was kind of a marriage, I think, between the space opera, of Star Wars, and kind of that, as I said on my Facebook post today, like the Planet of the Week format of Star Trek. It wasn't as deep as Star Trek, and then the writing could have been a lot better,
right?
But, even at the time as a 12-year-old, I said, well, this isn't as good as it could be, but it was fun to watch it every week, and some of the episodes were pretty good.
Oh yeah, it was something definitely to look forward to, and
Yeah,
something that we didn't have because,
yeah,
to your point, it was right after Star Wars had come out.
right.
Before we continue with that, I just want to welcome some of the other folks that are joining us out there. I see Shari's joining us, and she's she's tuning in from downstairs. Hi, hon. And also, Captain Phil is in the house. Phil, welcome. He's joining us. He
That
said
would have
he
been great.
brought Jimmy Carter
Mr.
on as a
President.
guest to talk about interrupting the brothers of man
Oh,
escaping
bless
silent
him. That would have
tyranny.
been great. Yeah.
Welcome, Phil. Always a pleasure. And then, yeah, Matt Anthony is in the house. Matt, welcome. He's saying peace in the Middle East begets peace, and love begets
Mhm.
love.
Exactly.
Randy's saying, remember all the breakfast cereal that had Battlestar Galactica stuff? That was more important than political news from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Jeff Rubel's joining us from Utah. Welcome, Jeff. Good to see you out there as well. And yeah, let me see. Martin is saying now, remember, we don't even talk about what happened in 1980. Yeah, let's not go there. And
Oh,
Randy is
God,
saying,
Galactica 1980. Yeah, yeah. Oops.
you had to say it, Ross.
Yeah.
Randy's saying 1999 BSG was canceled. I feel like the world was against me.
Yeah.
Hey, Brennan is joining us as well. Brennan, welcome. It was not Space 1999, but I enjoyed the premiere episode at the time.
He's yanking my chain.
Well, here's the thing, Ross.
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica, each episode was estimated at a cost of $1 million back
Right.
in the day. So, I mean,
Except for the pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah. The pilot
That's
was a lot more expensive than that, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's why they pulled the plug, eventually. Because the viewership was okay, it was pretty steady, but it was just too much to produce it. Plus, they got into a few legal problems with 20th Century Fox and Lucasfilm.
Right.
So that kind of put the pressure on also, I think.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of battles that were taking place
Behind the scenes.
behind
Yeah.
the scenes, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, too, when they were working up as far as developing this show, they were trying to decide if they were going to actually go with doing a movie and then maybe 2 or 3 episodes put together, almost like a mini series.
A series of movies. Right. Right.
But then what they did was at the last minute, ABC wanted to go ahead and wanted them to actually do it as a series. And unfortunately, what was happening is they were cranking out they had to crank out the scripts, crank out the stories, and literally as they were filming the stories, these episodes were were being actually produced to be on television only maybe like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. So the turnaround time was really, really tough. So I think that it's almost like if they had gone with the original product to have done it as a miniseries. I immediately think of the series V, which is where they actually had done the original miniseries. Then I believe they did a second miniseries, and then after that, what they did was they did the series, and the series is what killed V. I mean, V as a standalone, I thought was excellent, and it really, really held up. But there's some things that really should not, be dragged out, and I think Galactica definitely would have survived. However, things were just too rushed. I really, really had wished that it had gone into a second season. And
Well, it did.
unfortunately, well,
and that's how we got Galactic in 1980. It was the suits re-envisioning. It's like, well, all right, you want to cut the budget. We have to cut down on the effects. What do we do?
Yeah. I don't
Here
even
you go.
I don't even want to talk about it, Ross.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember how much I was looking forward to it just because I thought maybe. And essentially, even the effects that were used in those episodes were all recycled from Battlestar Galactica. So,
well, even watching the movie, I call it the movie, the pilot episode. You can see certain effect shots are reused. There's always that shot of the banking Cylon ray or whatever they call it getting hit, and then once in a while they'll flip the image so it's banking the other way. Like, how many times have we seen that, and will we see that in the series? So yeah, you got a lot of recycled footage, and they wanted to make sure they got the most for their money.
Right. Yeah. To your point, I mean, there were a lot of stock images that we would see pretty much on a recurring basis. I mean, where the Cylon Raider was coming down on the Galactica, and then you had the two Vipers that were behind it, and then
Right.
I think in the one example from the pilot from the movie, Starbucks says I got him on the right, and then Boomer says I got him on the left, and then they take it out.
Yeah, I mean they're cool shots the first 100 times.
Oh yeah.
And when they launch, the launches are all the same,
right.
Footage and sure, but the and then after the series tanked, they released it as a feature.
Yes,
in Sense-Around. They re-edited it a little bit, but it was I saw it in the movies a couple of times. So
yeah, did you see that at the State Theater by any chance?
I did. The first time I saw it was in New York, somewhere, New York City, and then I saw it at the State Theater in Easton.
Right.
In Sense-Around, one of only 4 movies, by the way, that were released in the United States in Sense-Around.
And that was one of them.
To destroy the plastering in the State Theater.
Well, Galactica, it premiered, as we were saying, September 17th, 1978. Unfortunately, it was the last episode, which was The Hand of God, was April 29th of 1979. The series was canceled on the 23rd of April. And to your point, shortly after that, they made the decision to actually show the movie in the movie theaters in an attempt to try to recoup. Now, this has survived. I don't know do you have this? Did you get this?
I did. I don't know if I still have it or not. It would be at my parents' house.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This was from back in the day.
Yeah.
And just to show the viewers.
Right. They did a similar thing when Star Wars opened. They gave out you could get the booklet.
Right. And I don't remember having to pay for this,
yeah, I think Star Wars you had to pay. I don't remember though. I seem to recall you did.
And then they had bios and everything, which was really cool.
Yeah. There he is, fresh off the Ponderosa.
And then there's more of the cast, which is really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, but
so now, do you recall? You saw the movie, right, at the State?
I did see it at the State.
Do you recall, was Baltar killed in the movie or not?
In the movie, he was killed.
Yeah, I thought
because
so.
what they did was they decapitated him, and they didn't show it, but and even the Imperious leader makes a reference to tell the Cylon Raider, either have Baltar deliver the humans or or deliver his head. And then what happens is he brings them, and he says that it didn't work out. And then what they do is they go to do that, and then it cuts. For the series, they said that he was going to be delayed for public execution, and then everything goes wrong where that original Imperious leader gets killed. And then what they do is they do a backstory so that they can bring Baltar back as the weekly villain, and then they have another Imperious leader. So
and they bring in Lucifer.
Which was Jonathan Harris, the voice of Jonathan Harris.
Yeah, of course. Oh, boy. Yeah, so but I remember, whenever any of these movies came out, there was always a tie-in with Marvel Comics. They get the license for it, and then they'd start cranking out these adaptations, and they would always want to get them out by the time the shows came on or the movies came out. And a lot of times they wound up differing from whatever movie or television show it happened to be, because they were working from scripts and stills and that sort of thing. Right. So you would see, what the original conception of Jabba the Hutt was, for instance, in Star Wars, which looked nothing like what, Jabba turned out to be later, because they wound up cutting the footage. Or you got to see Biggs, you got to see the scenes with Biggs and Luke Skywalker. Well, in the Marvel Comics of Battlestar Galactica, they do kill Baltar, but in the episode, he survives. But you can kind of see how they, knowing what happens to him in the original script and in the movie, you can kind of see how they cut it, where the guy pulls a sword out and they have him kind of, through the editing, they managed to and they put in the newly shot footage, sparing his life. Yeah.
Because it's like he's going to pull out his sword, and then there's like a glitch, and then it stops. And then
exactly.
Yeah. Hey, Deborah's joining us. Welcome, Deborah. Good to see you out there.
Hello.
Uh, Randy Lee commented and said, Anne Lockhart, huge crush on her. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, honestly, Randy, I had a crush on her too, and that was Sheba. But
Yeah.
Anne Lockhart's character did not come until The Living Legend because she was playing the daughter of the legendary Commander Kane,
Right.
who was
Lloyd
Lloyd Bridges.
Bridges.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's another acting dynasty. She was from the Lockhart. I'm sure you know that as a Lost in Space fan, that she was
Sure.
part of that acting dynasty. And her grandfather was Gene Lockhart.
Yep.
And her mother was it what's her name? Annette Lockhart? What
No,
was her name?
June.
No, her
Oh,
mother
June
was June.
Lockhart's mom. Yes.
June Lock. I'm sorry, her grandmother. Yeah, they were both in the Reginald Owen Christmas Carol from 1938, where he plays Scrooge and the Cratchits. Yeah.
Yeah, because June Lockhart was in that as well too, wasn't she? Wasn't she the daughter?
Oh, was she? Was it a whole family affair? And oddly enough, Patrick McNee turns up in the Alistair Sim Christmas Carol. He plays the young Marley. So all roads lead to Charles Dickens, I guess.
Wow.
Dickens adaptations.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Jack is saying Battlestar was visually stunning and, as my neighbors will attest, had a rousing soundtrack, but the writing suffered.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the idea. What's it say here?
Claudia's commenting saying, I remember that the Mike Douglas show did a week-long promotion of the show on the set. I would catch a little bit after school. One was on the bridge set, and I think Herb Jefferson Jr., when asked what's behind that door, he said the turbo flush. Hey, Dennis Chevalier is joining us from Canada as well. Dennis, welcome to the show. Good to see you out there. Hope you're doing well. Phil's also commenting, said, I had a love-hate relationship with Battlestar Galactica, moments of greatness, but also on overwhelmed reuse of stock footage. I remember that feeling carried over into the reboot show until the reboot won a Hugo. Now, I'm kind of glad Larson did their groundwork for that clumsy, as Larson's work was. Still Living Legend and Lords of Kobol were amazing for the time. No,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, because Glenn A. Larson was a little bit of a hack. And yet he did kind of put a lot of work into this. I mean, he kind of followed the George Lucas like prototype. He followed his basic design of just cherry picking from the world's mythologies and religions and literature and just threw it all on the page and said, okay, this is Galactica, without really absorbing the influences so much into something, archetypal. Yeah.
But there was a mystique about it, though. I mean, even with that beginning, now granted, and you probably remember this, of course, that there were so many comparisons made in regards to Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica, or Battlestar Galactica into Star Wars. I mean, people were comparing, as far as, Apollo to like Luke Skywalker. They were saying Starbuck was like Han Solo. They were saying Adama was like Obi-Wan Kenobi. They were saying the Daggett was like R2-D2, and so on and so forth. But it I don't know. I just, again, I pretty much separated it and then watched it and enjoyed it for what it was. But
I thought Zach was more like Luke Skywalker, which is funny because I'm thinking, oh man, this is so 70s. I mean, look at the Rick Springfield hair. And then I went, oh my God, that is Rick Springfield. Everybody has a feathered hair.
Do you remember the song? I'll do anything for you.
Or Jesse's Girl.
Which
I looked it up. It was actually after the show. So, but he was known. He was known.
No, and he was. What was it? Shari was even saying, that he was on a soap opera, and I remember he was on General Hospital. That was a big deal.
Oh, okay.
Back
then.
He
did a lot of television acting actually to parallel with his music career.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought he had more of that kind of I don't know,
vibe. Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, like the green farm boy kind of vibe about him.
He was
maybe not a farm boy, a more moisture farmer. What's that?
He was so green, Ross, that he got blown up.
Yeah, he got blown up. We got to set up the pathos. It didn't become a revenge plot. Although Apollo gleefully says, "And this is for you, Zach."
Right.
You thought it would have had a little more, resonance, more of a weight about it. But They kept it pretty light, other than Maren Jensen crying.
Yeah. But
His
here
sister. Yeah.
again, though, the way they edited, there's different versions of that first pilot, though, depending upon where you're watching it. So if you're watching it, if you're streaming it, or if you're watching it on the DVD, or if you're watching the television broadcast, there's lots of editing and different variations and versions. In fact, at the beginning, when there's the assault on all the battle stars that's going on, and essentially the Galactica is the only one that actually gets to launch its fighters in an attempt to protect itself, and it's only because Adama is like so against, does not trust. It's almost like he doesn't trust Baltar. He doesn't trust the situation. I don't think it's so much Baltar at that time, but he's just really not buying into this whole thing of peace, and he's trying to convey this to Lou Ayres, the president, that essentially that the Cylons hate humanity with every fiber of their existence. And he says they'll never accept the situation that there's going to be peace. And the president, who, again, Lou Ayres, is trying to go in the route that, well, you know what, we're at this moment, it's going to happen, we can't do anything to disrupt it. And then he's got Baltar in his ear. So it's like anytime something, Adama challenges anything, with the situation that seems to be arising with both Apollo and Zach being on this patrol at the very beginning to see, normal patrol, just to see what's going on in the area that they're in. Yeah. And it's being questioned. What happens is Baltar essentially comes back to the president and he's like, well, this could just be something that's, what did they say? Outlaw traffic. And it, we don't want to disrupt any of the, anything with the Cylons, because if they see any type of stance of force, it could, jeopardize everything. But at one point you see Baltar go off. And then what happens is when Zach is being attacked and everything, and then Adama's trying to get his attention and question it, and then he right away he's like turning and saying, Baltar, like what's the response? What do I say? Baltar is gone. I mean, he's history. And then from that point on, everything is just going in the direction of they're going to get attacked and essentially killed.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like a recurring archetype in world. Again, religions and mythologies and literature, you always have the kind of the turncoat, the guy who kind of whispers, in somebody's ear and kind of is the trickster or the guy who causes all the agony or misery in a story or in the world, whether it be Loki or Iago and Othello or I think isn't it Grimer Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings that has the ear of who is it? Is it Theoden? It's been a long time since I've read these things, but yeah. So he's kind of a type. Lou Ayres, he was a big actor in the 30s and 40s. He was Dr. Kildare forever, but he was back in the original version of All Quiet on the Western Front in 1930.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he won an Oscar for Johnny Belinda, which I think was in the 40s. And Ray Milland was in it. Ray Milland, Academy Award winner for The Lost Weekend, and of course he was in the Thing with Two Heads with Rosie Greer.
Yep, which we will cover on this show at some point.
Ray Milland, who goes from Lost Weekend to lead the career, The Thing with Two Heads, Frogs, Man with the X-Ray Eyes. It's just like
Man with the X-Ray Eyes. Yep,
man's got to eat. I guess he got to play Ryan O'Neal's dad in Love Story. And then after that, he just said, show me the money.
He did a couple Columbo episodes too. By the way. He was a villain, and he was actually a protagonist, and he was an antagonist in Columbo. So he got to do best of both worlds. Deborah is very much into the film noir and the older movies, so I'm sure she's thinking about these actors as you're mentioning. But yeah, Lou Ayres, my God, what an acclaimed actor. He did a Columbo as well too.
Wow. And I looked him up. I don't even know if he was 70 yet at the time. He might have been 69, 70 when he did.
No, are you serious?
Yeah, he looked a lot older, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. My God,
he didn't age well.
Nah. Martin is saying the 12 planets were named after the zodiac signs. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. The 12 tribes of Israel.
Yeah,
but you know what? Apparently there's all this Mormon, LDS symbolism layered on it that I don't know anything about. But
Glenn Larson was a Mormon.
Yeah, right. He was a Mormon. So he brought a lot of that into it, in addition to all of the other, elements that he brought in from the Judeo-Christian tradition and the the Greek mythology, and the fighter pilots are all wearing Egyptian pharaoh helmets.
Now here, as much as I love those helmets, and as cool as I thought they were, you can even tell when, there's one episode where Starbuck takes it and he throws it, and it sounds like a piece of plastic just hitting the wall or hitting the floor. And it's like, how is this helmet going to protect you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, and you know what? Well, those warriors are so tough. I'm sorry. Those guys, none of them look like warriors. I mean, what kind of training program do you think that they undergo? Could you imagine if James Cameron had done a Battlestar Galactica, how different it would have been? It would have just been them working out and being sweaty and gritty, fighting xenomorphs.
Are you hinting to aliens by any chance?
There would have been a lot more cigars. And what about that? You're using this. You're the last Battlestar, and you're out in the middle of space with no, resources for as far as you can see. So why don't we just smoke cigars on the in our recycled oxygen?
Hey, you know what though? It was character. There was a lot of character.
Yeah. You can't have Starbucks without the cigar. Yeah.
No, you can't. William Graff is commenting. William, welcome to the show. He's saying one of the best things about Battlestar was the actors that worked on the show: Lauren Green, John Colicos, Jonathan Harris, Patrick McNee, Fred Astaire. Great people.
Yeah,
absolutely. The show had wonderful names. In fact, there's a documentary out there, and I'll post it into the chat a little later. And Herb Jefferson Jr., who played Boomer in the movie and as well as the TV series, even commented about that. Just like so many wonderful actors and legends that they had the opportunity to work with during that time on the series. And just a lot of the greats.
Yeah, and Wilfred Hyde White is in this also, who has a larger part in Glenn A. Larson's Buck Rogers.
Yes, in the second season as Dr. Goodfellow.
Yeah. And he was in a lot of movies too. Every once in a while, I'll see him turn up, in The Third Man. He has a big part in My Fair Lady with Rex Harrison.
Okay, yeah.
And Audrey Hepburn.
He did a lot of episodic television guest starring. One of the things that I saw him on recently, just from going through, was did a Mission Impossible episode. Just, again, it was like a repertoire of these actors, and a lot of them were film actors, and then they went to doing television shows. And back in the day, I would say even the 60s, 70s, a lot of actors pretty much that did movies stuck with the movies. It wasn't until later that they started to make the crossover with that to television. Brennan is commenting, Isaac Asimov was a witness in the trial, arguing for the show that they were using tropes common in all sci-fi.
Yeah. Now he's alluding to, and I know you're trying to soft pedal this, and I will too, because I don't know all the facts involved, but there were lawsuits involved with the show. 20th Century Fox and Lucasfilm Limited. George Lucas was not happy with, for various reasons. I would be, come on, you make Star Wars. It's before Star Wars becomes Star Wars. You know what I mean? Where it's just like this, where it itself becomes the evil empire, takes over the earth. Star Wars was like a kind of a lightning in a bottle, and they're worried that Galactic is going to come along and kind of cheapen the brand. If they decide to do something on television. Look, they went and made that wonderful holiday special, and never mind.
Someday we should cover that on the. Oh, that's right, Ross. We did.
So you get John Dykstra. You got to imagine how Lucas was feeling here, because John Dykstra got in a lot of trouble with Star Wars. He was revolutionizing the special effects for Star Wars. They were doing everything on the fly there. So he's inventing like the Dykstra flex and doing
flex.
What's that? Yeah. So he's kind of revolutionizing the special effects, which is what ILM, what Lucas wants, or wanted. But it was, they want it fast. You know what I mean? They want it good, but they want it fast. And so he was kind of holding up the production. They got done with principal photography, I guess, and he was supposed to be so much further along, and Lucas finally let him go. So there was kind of, they didn't part under the best of circumstances. But once Dykstra went over and not only did the special effects for Galactica, but was producer of the show. and took all of that technology over there and it basically made the Vipers X-Wings, but with 3 wings instead of 4, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, they were not real happy. It was I imagine it was quite heated. Yeah. But, you know, the courts found in favor of Galactica at first because of what, you know, Brennan said about Asimov. I mean, these were all tropes common to science fiction. Right. And what happened is Universal turned it around and said, because Universal produced Galactica, 20th Century Fox was distributed Star Wars, and Universal turned it around and said, well, Star Wars is just a rehash of Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers serials, which our studio put out. and R2-D2 is basically Huey, Dewey, and Louie from Silent Running.
Yep.
For which John Dykstra did the special effects. You know, so there. And it was like they were all sad trombones, like wah, wah, as the judge.
Sadly, it was almost like a what do they say, tit for tat, sort of.
Yeah. So they threw out the lawsuit,
right?
But then they appealed it, and I'm not sure what happened beyond that. So I'm not going to tell tales out of school, but I think there was a settlement out of court. So I don't know if Galactica wound up paying or not. I'm sure the information is out there.
Yeah, yeah, it's unfortunate, but. It you know, fast forward 45 years later, and here we're still talking about it. So that's a great thing.
Yeah. Well, then the series developed had a whole second life when they revived it for the Sci-Fi channel, and I've never seen I remember it got a lot of acclaim, but it looked like it was pretty dark. So yeah, I just never caught it.
There's a lot of folks out there that really love the new Battlestar, and the only thing for me personally was I watched the very first episode, but when I was trying to watch it, there was a lot going on, and I didn't get to watch it beginning to end uninterrupted, and therefore I really didn't enjoy it, and I pretty much left it at that. I never really went back to it, and I've heard so many people say that it is a wonderful series. The writing was incredible. Definitely give it a chance, Roy. And I just haven't, and it's on the list of things to do eventually, but it's just, you know, that list is pretty long, and at some point it will happen. I can say in regards to Battlestar Galactica, I watched it religiously. I watched it when it first premiered right up until the end. And those earlier episodes I felt were very good. And then there was almost like a term, what do they say, jumping the shark, where it went into a different direction. But before we go with that, I'm gonna swing back.
It's going to be somebody correcting me saying about Dykstra and Silent Running, probably.
No,
because Trumbull directed Silent Running, and he probably did the effects. But I know that Dykstra was involved with the film, and Trumbull recommended him to George Lucas because he was tied up with Close Encounters at the time.
Oh, okay, yeah, because it was all in that era. I mean,
what a great era. Yeah,
it really was. William is saying, I remember well the hype that preceded the premiere. I definitely thought of it as a television version of Star Wars. So much of the look of the show was pure Star Wars. Definitely. Catherine Speck is out there. Catherine, welcome. Thanks for being out there. She's saying, hello, guys. Good to see you both. I was too late to be a fan of the series. Life, family, children occupied my time. I joined in later. I'm feeling like a dinosaur with my preferences for exciting TV and movies. However, you both have delved into the past entertainment that thrilled and excited me. Well, we appreciate that. Lucas and Spielberg revived yesteryear and made a fortune. Mm-hmm. That was good. Everything old can be new again. Music, as Ross knows, can always be a path to the bridge that connects the past with the
present. Yeah.
The present, yes.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what she meant. Yeah, that's true. I mean, especially in the 70s, it just seemed like that whole taking parts from, other cars and rebuilding your muscle car, your ride seemed to be really the thing. I mean, there was a whole, I guess the movies had been around just long enough that the directors that all came of age in the late 60s and 1970s were all, remembering all the movies that they enjoyed growing up, and they just kind of did modern takes on them. George Lucas, obviously. I mean, Peter Bogdanovich was, trying to ignite the screwball comedy with like What's Up, Doc, and and Nickelodeon, and and then later Quentin Tarantino, of course, came along with Pulp Fiction, and these guys don't. I mean, they have original ideas. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark is a good example of just taking a lot of old elements and making something new out of it.
Right.
They have their own ideas, but they're taking elements from these, modern mythologies. You know what I mean? They're all kind of at the periphery of all of our consciousness, but they're all like modern myths. That were.
I was going to say,
yeah,
Raiders of the Lost Ark, I mean, is a take on the Charlton Heston movie that we talked about.
Right, Secret of the Incas, among other things. Right, yeah, but that was also tied up with serials, and James Bond was an influence when they were talking about it. And
it's a wonderful example of how filmmakers are influenced by what they watched or what they experienced when they grew, when they're growing up too, or what they were exposed to, because or what movies they've seen or television they've seen, because it really makes an impression. And then it just kind of fast forward into the generation when they're actually becoming filmmakers, and then they will eventually influence the next generation. It's kind of a cool cycle if you really stop to think about it. And where we're at right now, I mean, in 2023, we've experienced it all. I mean, from what we saw when we grew up, and then a lot of the filmmakers, through the 80s and the 90s and the double zeros. Unfortunately, some of the stuff that, we've talked about this a lot on the show, it's just has gone in a certain type of direction where it seems that characterization and writing is really being left at the wayside, and there's no substance seems to have been forgotten, and it's more a lot about action and let's what can just drive things. It's like if you blink in when you're watching a movie nowadays, it's like you've missed something. You don't have that moment to like run to the restroom, because if you do, it's like there's been all these action sequences that have taken place, and those action sequences are essentially driving the plot, and there's just no moments of where it's calm and you can process. But that's going down a rabbit hole.
No, I think that that the thing was, all these brilliant guys in the 70s that were just coming up and really starting to hit their peak, we're all looking back on these other classic directors that were all bringing their experiences from life, and a lot of them helped invent the motion picture. But I mean, they all had really colorful lives outside the movies before they got to Hollywood, or they went off and were involved with World War II. And these people really lived, and they made these classics. And then all the guys in the 70s saw these things, and they just kind of were cinema junkies, and they made their movies. But now we're to the point where people are at least 2 times removed from real life experience, so that everything we're seeing is like a video game or a graphic novel. I mean, not to denigrate those things, they have their place, but there's no more, and plus we're living in a world where, this is all just conjecture on my part. We're living in a world where we're so connected to social media, where nobody disconnects. You don't get out for a walk, and you don't, kind of disconnect from the world for a few hours and walk in the woods or what have you. Everybody's always checking, their phones or their, there's no more quiet time, no more reflective time, no more time to go have your own adventures because you're busy seeing what everybody else is doing all the time, or sharing your own adventures. It's like, oh, here I am at the Grand Canyon. Look, everybody, when you should be looking at the canyon.
You know what, Ross, that could be a movie in itself. That could be a movie to be made right there.
Yeah, there you go. I'm brilliant.
Let's work on that script.
There you go. But anyway, I think we lost everybody now.
Yeah. It's all
everybody wants to get back to the Cylons blowing up Rick Springfield. All right, let's talk about that for a little bit. I can get behind that. All right, what did it say? He burst what?
Yeah. Phil is being funny. He said, "Was so happy the Cylon blew up Rick Springfield. He burst into flames when the Viper blew up." No, and that was I'll be honest with you, that was a really cool effect, actually.
Yeah, well, there were a couple of really unexpectedly nasty, considering that happened in the 8 o'clock hour when it first aired. Right. So it was like a family hour when you saw the flames inside the Viper before it exploded. But of course, the they save the Ovions for later on in the evening when you have them, making people into food and the in their pupil stage or whatever, feeding on people and everything else. It's like, oh, this is getting pretty nasty.
Now, let me ask you a question. Did you think, no, I don't know if you're going to remember or not, but they really,
larval stage. Yeah.
They kind of drew you in where you're thinking that almost, okay, Rick Springfield isn't going to make it, but then he gets really close. I mean, and I'll say Zach, it's the trio, it's the family, it's Apollo, it's Zach, and it's Athena. So it's the two brothers and the sister, and Athena's a bridge officer, and Apollo and Zach are the warriors. And unfortunately, Zach's Viper, when he's on patrol with Apollo, gets damaged. His high engine gets hit, and he doesn't have the thrust to maintain to get back to the Galactica to warn the fleet. And it's, the Cylons are trailing him, and it looks like he's not going to make it. And then, he's right on top of the fleet. And then all of a sudden, he's calling for help, and nothing happens because they're told that they can't launch. And the president pretty much has restricted everything. And then you hear, there's this supposed boom in space. You can hear there's no sound. But anyway, the president says, what was that? And then, Adama says, that was my son, Mr. President. And then what happens is Adama at least took the precaution of doing a battle stations drill so that in the event that they are attacked, the warriors were ready and they launched all the Vipers. The one thing that didn't make sense to me, or one thing I would say is critical, is Apollo makes it to the Galactica before the Cylons arrive. And he lands, and then what happens is Adama says, as soon as that pilot lands, get him up here. As soon as he landed, he should have been on the comm, basically saying, you know what, it's an attack. It's, you know what I mean.
Let's not even get into the whole technology of the thing. I mean, from the computers on the bridge, but there was something else that was totally, I love. I shouldn't say I love, but you go back and you watch the older science fiction, and there's so much you can't blame them for missing things.
No, because it's the story, and if they didn't have the story, I mean, you know what I mean, it wouldn't be what it is. So I mean,
what did we talk about last week? What did we talk about last week? What was I don't even remember what we did. It was before Outer Limits. It was. Are you there, Roy?
I'm here, Ross. I just I can't even remember.
Nobody remember. Oh yeah, it was Star Trek: The Menagerie. We were talking about some of the technology and
sure,
in the Menagerie. Yeah, but yeah. So, but something as simple as an intercom they would have had in the 70s. You'd think that they would have, ironed that out right from the get go. But we're supposed to have that shock because Rick Springfield was a known singer, a celebrity, and here he gets blown up at the beginning, which was probably.
I don't think anybody's really expecting it, but of course, then there's also he wasn't really mentioned as far as being a star of the show, so
right, I guess so. At the beginning, he didn't show up in the beginning credits.
You can kind of be logical with that. Brennan is saying Baltar was one of my favorite characters in the remake show, but that was a different story. Christian said Ray Milland, the frogs. Yeah.
Right.
William Graff is saying Lou Ayres was blacklisted for being a consensuous objector during World War II. He was also married to Ginger Rogers. Oh, I did not know that. Thanks for sharing those facts about him. Brennan said, I was just watching Dial M for Murder last night.
Another Ray Milland, yeah.
Yep. No matter how bad the B movies are, Milland insisted on wearing the ascot.
It's true. Ray Milland is always Ray Milland in whatever movie he's in. Game over, Ross.
Phil is saying, "Game over, Ross. Game over."
Yeah, that's in connection with the
Hudson.
What is it?
Aliens from Hudson, right?
But in connection with us saying about lots of coffee for Starbucks, in connection with what's his face? You were just talking about aliens. The Titanic guy.
Oh, Cameron. Yeah, Cameron.
Cameron, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Well, you got me thinking about Ray Milland. I have this film called Rhubarb, where Ray Milland is connected with some baseball team. I can't remember if it's the Yankees or but the team gets willed to a cat, named Rhubarb, and Ray Milland is the keeper, the guardian of this cat. And Ray Milland, of course,
I remember that.
Yeah. And he was in
what was the name of the movie?
Rhubarb.
That sounds
you
so
can
familiar.
look it up. Yeah, and he was in the Uninvited, which is a ghost story, but he's still Ray Milland. He's always unflappable. Nothing scares Ray Milland because he's Ray Milland. All he needs to know is where his next drink is coming from. Star Wars Invited. There you go. Yeah, exactly. The damn Busters. Well, that was one of the things that got brought up during the trial. Like
Phil saying, yeah, like the George Lucas story did from 1930.
Right, the damn Busters
in World War II.
That's one of the things that got brought up during the trial. That basically these films were following every World War II movie, so they couldn't really. They had no leg to stand on as far as the plot went. Yeah. The battle against fascism. Yeah.
Jeff Rubel saying no, it wasn't a total ripoff of Star Wars at all, just like Hogan's Heroes and Stalag 17. Yeah. Phil is saying Battlestar Galactica reboot was great. It may not have aged well since it was commentary on its time. Great music, though. Well, there you go.
A lot of it by Bear McCreary, I understand. I haven't heard any of the music either, but I remember people telling me about it.
And William saying, Ross, I'd never really thought about it before, but Lucas had to deal with television clones of both his hit movies, Star Wars to Battlestar, and also American Graffiti to Happy Days.
Sure. I mean, think about it. At least in our lifetimes, when we were growing up, any movie that was a big hit, they immediately started coming out with television series that kind of, emulated or mirrored the big hits of the time. I mean, look at Raiders of the Lost Ark. We got Tales of the Gold Monkey and Bring 'Em Back Alive.
Right.
And they would just, how many, spy shows or cop shows, or I guess cop shows were big regardless. But in the movies, we had Dirty Harry and,
I would love to cover Tales of the Gold Monkey. I'd love that show. I mean, it was only on one.
Is it available?
It's not available. I can't find it.
Yeah, because
even
with this one,
I'm even saying before Stephen, unfortunately Stephen Collins, things occurred with him and everything, but a lot of the shows, unfortunately when things happen like that, become not available. However, that show, I've never seen it out on Blu-ray or DVD or available for streaming, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, even with Galactica here, we were originally just going to do the movie, and that's basically what we're doing. But we're talking about the whole series. If you try to stream it, I believe it's in the 3 parts. Because for syndication, when they reshowed it on A&E or whatever it was, they chopped it up into 3 installments. So that was the only way I could find to stream it. I couldn't find the way we had seen it originally until the Hague sent me, kindly sent us the copy off of his VHS or whatever it was. But I finally broke down and bought the set. I said, I don't want to buy Battlestar Galactica. I'm only going to watch it once probably and put it away again. And, who knows, if I live long enough, maybe I'll watch it a third time. But, the thing is, and then here's a digression. I'm sure everybody out there has gone through this, though. If you say you finally get around, not when it's initially released, but you get around to say, oh, I really want to see, I really like this show, or I haven't seen this show in years, and I want to go back and get it. And you find out it's been issued like 3 or 4 times. It's gone through 3 or 4 incarnations. So you're trying to find reviews to see which one is the best one to get. And you go to Amazon and they have them all just jumbled. Every review of every set is on every set, so you can't tell what they're talking about. So you read all these awful things about the double-sided ones and how they wear out and they're not playing and this and that and the other thing. And I finally just took a chance, held my nose and leapt in and bought a set. And fortunately I bought a good set, but it was only like $20. And, so I'll probably go through and watch it. Oh, and that was the one that had the 2-hour movie, which was 3 hours when it aired, or actually more than that, even because of the 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 current events interruption there at 10:30. Yeah, because it started at 8 o'clock and it didn't end until it was like midnight when it ended.
It
Did
was
you get
late.
to watch?
It was
Did you
late.
get to
Yep.
watch the whole thing, or did your parents make you go to bed?
No, I
Yeah,
watched the whole thing.
that was a little thorny there for that hour, though.
Yeah, yeah. It was.
My parents were cool with like 10 or 15 minutes, but when it became apparent they weren't going to go back to the show, it's like, you got school tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, I got to see the end of Galactica. Can't go. Because there was no way to, it wasn't like now where you catch it on the internet or you stream it or even buy the VHS. If you missed it, you missed it.
Right.
Unless they reran it in the summer.
Well, that's just it. It was such a
Yeah.
different time frame. I mean, it's like if something was going to be on, especially in it originally, you maybe had one shot of seeing it, and that's if they reran it. What would happen is during the holidays they would do a rerun, and then also with summertime, and then even with summer, if the show wasn't in its entirety, I mean, if it got canceled, they would only show it so far, and then that would be pretty much it. And
Right.
it really was a disappointment in those days, though, when really, I think the video. I'm trying to remember when my parents got a VHS. I think they got one I want to say it was 79 or 1980. And I remember I had one video, one tape, because the tapes they were a lot of money. I mean, it was like $20 for a video cassette, and saved my allowance and everything, and I pretty much had that. And then I was like taping at the 6-hour speed. You could do like, what was it, 2, 4, 6?
Record it all at EP, so you can get 6 hours on there or whatever it is.
And then the quality was horrible, but and what's hysterical? I remember back in the day too. I had recorded, and this is total digression, but 1999 was on Channel 11, and they were showing it here and there. And then I was taping those episodes, and then there was also Star Trek, and then I was trying to like decide, what am I going to be able to get on the tape and everything, and I actually have some of those tapes to this day, but it was just being very select because of that. In fact, you even recorded a 1999 episode for me. I think it was in '83. It was on like in the middle of the night, and our video recorder wasn't working. And I was like, Ross, can you do this for me? Please get me this. And it was the full circle. I'll never forget that.
And I'd stay up all night to do it.
Yeah, you set the timer.
I never trust the timer. That's how I got all my Marx Brothers movies.
I actually had some bouts where I thought I set the timer and it didn't work, and I was furious. That was awful. That was terrible. Yeah. Hey, Marianne. Marianne is joining us. And she's joining us from East Stroudsburg. Welcome, Marianne. Brennan's saying it's interesting to watch the end credits for something like Star Wars, and you recognize names who are big name directors now. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Christian also commented, "What's up, Doc? Is a big deal for Ryan O'Neal. Stanley Kubrick saw it and cast him as the lead in Barry Lyndon."
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Claudia's saying, "I'm sorry, but I just couldn't get into the new Battlestar Galactica. I was hoping that Richard Hatch could have gotten his continued story out of the launch bay." Yeah, you know what? We're jumping around a little bit, but back it was the Space 19, and Phil's out there. The Space 1999 convention that took place in 2000. What happened was it was not only a Space 1999 convention, and this one was in New York City. It was in Manhattan, in fact. What the organizer of the convention did was he had it be Space 1999, and then he also had it be Battlestar Galactica as well. And then also there was an actress, and I can't think of her name, that was from a soap opera that was there. And she had worked with Richard Hatch. Richard Hatch was an invited guest, and he attended the convention. He also brought with him a copy of the trailer, because he was trying to make a movie. He was trying to make a Battlestar Galactica movie, and it was called The Second Coming. And he had approached Universal Studios about it, but they didn't go with it. And I mean, there was a lot of push. I mean, he used his own money, and he was really trying to, get this to go. And it was probably like about a 4 or 5 minute, maybe even a little bit longer, 6 or 7 minute trailer that he had put together. And it was unfortunate that it did not get made, but it would have been pretty cool had it. And that's what Claudia is referring to.
Yeah, that was in the late 90s. Was that like 90?
Well, the convention was in 2000. It was actually it was September of 2000,
Oh, it was
and
that late.
yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking it was.
he made it in the late 90s though. It would
Oh,
have
he
been.
did. I was thinking it was in like within 20 years or just over 20 years after the series.
It was.
And I guess, you know, did he try to get anybody else from the series back
He was able
involved?
to. John Colicos is
Oh,
actually
well,
in
he'll
the.
do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was actually in the sample that he put together. It was again, it
Yeah.
was like maybe 6 or 7 minutes. He's a part of it. He was able to get George Murdoch, who was a doctor in the series, later on,
Right.
and also Bojay, the character of Bojay. And I can't think of the actor's name at the top of my head, and I'm sure the fans out there will be able to jump in on it. He was actually in the episode that introduced Anne Lockhart's character Sheba. It was Sheba and Bojay, and they were part of the Pegasus, and then they came on the Galactica. He was a part of it, the actor that played Bojay, and of course Richard Hatch as well. And
I did.
like I said, great.
I did see this, but it was some time ago. The thing you put together. You may have sent it to me. I don't know, or tipped me off about it. Or I may have been before we reconnected. But so Dirk Benedict was not in any way, uh, you know, interested in doing this from what you know.
I won't say that, but I can just say that he was not in the trailer that was done. So
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to speak on his behalf. But
He's
I know
working on the. He was working on the reboot.
Well, and interesting enough, and that should
You
be
remember that?
I do. It was 1973 with Strother Martin. And,
yes, that's right.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Did you like that movie, Ross?
There's no H in it though. It's just the S. Yeah, it's where he injects himself with the snake,
the venom,
the snake antidote or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The cobra fluid.
The king cobra.
Yeah.
Hold on one second, Ross. I'm having an issue.
Are you looking for stills from it?
No, I just was trying to. I wanted to bring something up that I wanted to, and I think this is going to work. I want to put this in the chat section. So, folks, if you have an opportunity, I put it into the chat section. It's on YouTube, and you can check out the second coming. You definitely want to see it. It's
good.
Pretty cool.
Good, I'll check it out.
Jack Stouffer, yes, he played Bojay, and he was a part of it. Thank you, Claudia. I appreciate that. Also, just so you know, folks, Don, thanks for joining. Don's joining us from Rhode Island. Don Bethman, and Claudia's saying, yes, I was there at Main Mission 2000. Okay, cool, Claudia. I was there too. It was actually, and I know Phil was there as well. And Liz is joining us from the UK. Welcome, Liz. Seeing you out there.
So you saw the Battlestar Galactica movie before the series, or is that what she's talking about? Obviously, she's not talking about Hiss.
I'm not sure what she's talking about.
Probably the Galactica movie.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Jerry's saying, when the new Battlestar Galactica was on, I made a short fan film for a contest on Sci-Fi. And I named my female protagonist Sheba in honor of the original. I think out of all the films that had been submitted, mine was the only one to have a reference back to the original show. Well, that's pretty cool, Jerry. Jerry, do you have that available? Would love to see that sometime too. That's pretty cool that you put something like that together.
Again, Sheba, biblical reference.
Yep.
As in Solomon and Sheba, the Song of Songs. Glenn Larson was. He was wishing that Joseph Campbell or Bill Moyers. He's wishing Bill Moyers would interview him after Galactica. Tell us about the hero's journey, Glenn. Tales of the Gold Monkeys on YouTube. Oh, okay.
I'm definitely going to check that out. Absolutely.
Yeah, I wonder what the quality will be, but I haven't seen that since it was on. The first time.
Brennan.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
So anyway, just to remind the folks out there of the cast. Now, I've tried to include everybody. So again, unfortunately, Richard Hatch had passed a few years back.
Yeah.
Really, really nice guy, super nice. Like I said, he was at the 2000 convention, and then he was also at the Chiller convention as well in 2007. Dirk Benedict, also Lauren Green. Lauren Green's been gone for almost like 30 years, Ross.
Yeah.
Passed away a long time ago.
Yeah. It was just amazing to me at the time that they got him to be in this. Is like, wait, the guy from Bonanza?
I know, right?
He's going to be leading the Battlestar?
That
Dirk Benedict, I don't know if you know this or not. He had a cancer scare.
yes.
I wasn't aware that it was ongoing while the show was on, though. I thought it was later that this had happened, but
Right.
apparently he gave up meat. He went on to a macrobiotic diet and gave up meat and dairy and just somehow the cancer went into remission over time, and he's still working. So decades later, so good for him.
Yeah.
He smoked cigars through the whole thing, though.
Oh, I know. And of course, we knew him as Faceman from the A-Team as well.
Yeah, exactly. The A-Team, which I've never watched, by the way.
You never watched the A-Team?
I never saw the A-Team. You know what? Once I graduated, well, you know what? It was even before I graduated from high school. I was doing too many things in the evenings. I wasn't watching a lot of unless it was a certain night of the week when I was home with my mom or something like that, and we'd watch something. I missed out on a lot of this stuff. I was already in college, I think, when A-Team came on.
Gotcha.
So, missed it. I know what it is, though.
Actually, hold on a second.
George Peppard, Mr. T.
That? Hold on. Let me stop sharing here. Yeah, George Peppard, Mr. T, and then also my goodness, I can't think of the actor's name. That's terrible. He was a recurring character on Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I can't think of his name. That's terrible. And he played man, that's really bad. Come on, Star Trek fans. I'm sure you'll be able to jump in there. Barclay. He played Commander Barclay on Star Trek: The Next Generation. Dwight Schultz. Okay, it came to me. I pulled it off. He was a recurring character on the A-Team as well, too. Let me share the screen again. There we go. I had a glitch there, and I wanted to correct it. So then the other cast members that were recurring, Herb Jefferson Jr. playing Boomer. You had Maren Jensen that was playing Athena. You had Tony Schwartz that was playing Lieutenant Jolly.
Jolly, yeah.
Jolly, yeah. You had Noah Hathaway that was playing Botsy.
And his Daggett.
Muffet. And then you also had Terry Carter that was playing Colonel Ty. It's interesting too. As the series progressed, and the way I have the actors listed there is the way they were actually in the opening credits of the movie, the pilot. Jolly's character became more of like he was supposed to be a recurring character, but he was not on very much in the later episodes. In fact, he seemed to show up less and less. The same thing with Maren Jensen, and I had read that she actually came down with Epstein-Barr. And
she got sick. Yeah,
she got sick.
Was that during this series or was that afterwards?
I've read two things, that it was later, and then I also read it was during the series, which is why she wasn't in it in the later episodes as much.
She did a lot of stuff, other things beyond acting. She was involved with other ventures. I remember she was in Deadly Blessing.
I was just going to ask you, did you see that at the Easton Eric?
I remember. I don't think I saw it in the movies. No, I didn't see it in the movies, but I did see it. Yeah, I think on cable.
Yeah, it was like 81 it came out, and that was like the last thing I actually saw her in.
Yeah. And I found out, I didn't realize that Terry Carter was actually originally cast as Boomer, but apparently he had an injury or something. And
they wanted him as Starbuck, and he turned it down.
Was it Starbuck? Is that what he was going to play?
Well, he auditioned, as you said, for Boomer, but he got tied. But they originally wanted him for Starbuck, but he turned the role of Starbuck down.
Oh, I didn't realize that. From what I understood, he kind of got kicked up to the bridge because I think he broke his leg or something, and they needed him. He could do the scenes without having to run around or or what have you. But okay, sounds
Do you
good to
remember?
me. Some
Do you
more
remember?
galactic lore. Yeah.
There you go. Do you remember him being on McCloud, the TV series McCloud?
No, I don't. Yeah.
He was a
I
recurring.
remember who was it? Dennis Weaver, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it was yeah. Yeah, I remember the show. You know, you remember the with the NBC mystery movie,
The wheel, the
The
rotating
Wheel,
wheel.
right?
Sunday nights. Oh, incidentally, Ross, it's 8:16 p.m. So Battlestar Galactica will have had started 45 years ago.
Ooh,
At
here we
right
go.
now, it would. So if we went through a time warp back 45 years ago, we would be watching
Yeah,
Battlestar Galactica right now.
there you go. Maybe we get back just in time to see Rick Springfield get blown up. It would be worth it.
And then there's Lou Ayres, the president, and now he was on the battleship or the Battlestar Atlantia,
Right.
and then Wilford Hyde White, who was designated to the new Council of the 12, and then of course Baltar. Interesting enough too, as originally conceived, and Joe and I had spoken about this. Baltar was not a member of the original Quorum of the 12, but later on in the series, he references being a member of the Council of the 12.
Mm.
So they actually changed that in the writing. Now, you also have Cassiopeia, Lorette Spang.
Yeah, I talk about again something taken from Greek mythology, but it's just so random because it really has nothing to do with her character or anything. You know, she's the mother of Andromeda, and she's actually rather vain in the myths. She's the one that brings down the whole curse of, we've seen Clash of the Titans.
Mhm.
The Kraken wasn't in the original myth, but the sea monster, comes to claim Andromeda because of Cassiopeia's vanity. She says she's more beautiful than something. I don't know, the children of Poseidon or something. Some sea god that she angers.
Right.
So how's that relate to the, what I mean? It's just kind of like cherry picking things. Oh yeah, it's Greek mythology. We'll name her Cassiopeia. Yeah.
Now, in mythology, let me ask you a question. In mythology, how would you say Cassiopeia? Would you say Cassiopeia or would you say Cassiopeia?
I don't know. I always say Cassiopeia, but if
Okay.
they say Cassiopeia in the series, so I don't know how I'll say it.
So
I'll say it both ways.
So when you look up at the stars, do you say that that's Cassiopeia or do you say Cassiopeia?
I say Cassiopeia.
Okay.
But that's just me. Maybe it's Cassiopeia. I don't know.
No, I'm just curious.
I'll have to ask a Greek.
Now, interesting story about this actor, John Fink. He's in the original credits. He is in the movie. He's in there for a brief, maybe minute, and he is the doctor that is fusing because Cassiopeia has a broken arm, and what happens is Starbuck brings her to the doctor to get worked on, and what happens is they fuse her bone. And he says that he has like one line where he says it's fused and it'll be stronger than it was before. Evidently, there was a whole backstory in regards to Serena actually having some kind of space type cancer, but that storyline was cut and deleted, and it was changed and it was cut and deleted. As a result, that doctor, who was a big part of that original concept of that story for Serena, his dialogue was like eliminated. So essentially he has that like 60-second part where he's actually on. The rest of his work wound up on the cutting room floor because they altered the story. So and then of course you have Jane Seymour, who was Serena, and
right.
She was coming right off of doing, what was it, Live and Let Die from James Bond. She was very popular in that.
Yeah, she was already a name when she was in this, and she did the Sinbad movie.
Yes,
Sinbad and the Golden Tiger, Eye of the Golden Tiger, or whatever. I can't remember.
Right.
I always get it mixed up because of the Rocky song.
Right.
Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. I can't remember. It's the Golden Voyage of Sinbad, Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, I think it was. She was in, but and Ray Milland.
I don't think we've covered that one. We haven't covered it. We haven't covered
we
that
haven't done that one
that
yet.
movie yet, though. I don't think.
All right, we'll do it next week.
No.
Yeah. No. So Jane Seymour,
go.
though, she kind of became a staple also of the miniseries. She was kind of the counterpart to what's his face there. It was in all of them.
Apollo.
Richard Chamberlain was always in the miniseries. She started turning up, and she was like in the Thornbirds and
right.
A couple of other miniseries. Oh, and Somewhere in Time. She made that the same right after Galactica. She moved on to Somewhere in Time.
Right, with Christopher Reeve, and that was filmed in I believe that was filmed in 1979. So to your point, it was like literally a year later. Yeah. And then of course, as you were saying before, I mean, we were talking about Ray Milland, which huge.
Sire Yuri,
yeah. It was almost like comical, and it was actually insulting and very sad. Actually, I mean, they joked it off, but what happens is Apollo, Sire Yuri's, he's got all these women around him, and then he's being a glutton with all the food, and he's hogging the food for him and his quote unquote guests on the Rising Star, which is like the luxury liner of the fleet, and he's just surrounding himself with wealth and everything that goes along with it. And here Apollo and Boomer and Starbuck are trying to tell the people that are in the fleet that have not eaten or drank water like in 2 days that are starving, that nobody's being held out, and everything is being dispersed properly, and relief is on the way, trust me as a warrior. And then they're like laughing at him, and essentially when he finds out that this is going on, he calls him out on it, and then he asks about his wife and Cyrus Yuri, and then he says unfortunately she wasn't able to make it to the shuttle, and it's like, and then Apollo like calls him out on it and says, I'm sure she would really be happy about the way you're pretty much grieving over her, and it was pretty much, it was really sad actually. But
yeah, well, and still relevant, unfortunately. But if we're going to follow the 10 Commandments parallel with Adama being Moses and the 12 tribes and what have you, he plays Dathan from the Cecil B. DeMille version, where you have Edward G. Robinson, who's always like saying, "Oh no, don't follow Moses. What does he know? Let's dance around the calf." Let's revel and dance around the golden idols. Just my
and then there's that. No, it's a great analogy. I mean, that's a good crossover with that, and that's exactly what they were doing with this character. Yeah. And let me just check the comments. Okay, and then so then we of course got Zach, and then Rick Springfield, and then we have Dr. Wilker, who is John Dullingham. Yeah, or no, or Dr. Fink rather, right?
Dr. Fink, is that what it was? Yeah.
And then of course, and then we've got Cetal, the Ovion, and that of course is Sandy Gimple, who was on last week.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
And then we have of course Anne Lockhart as well.
Did Anne Lockhart turn up in this episode?
No, but I wanted to include her because those are the people I have listed as far as folks that were a part of the the episodes, and she came in later. She came in with the Living Legend, so I definitely wanted to put that out there and include it.
Apparently, Ed Begley Jr. has a recurring part on the bridge, but I didn't spot him.
Now he was actually Ed Begley Jr. was Green Bean. Now he was in earlier episodes, and then he's referenced in later episodes. So
okay. Was he in this one? Did you see him?
I did not see him. If he was on, he was only on momentarily. Yeah. So just Brennan is saying Lorette's bang a beautiful woman. And hey, Jeffrey's out there already. And he said, dude, why am I not in this conversation? I love this show. we could always bring you on a little early.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely. You want me to bring in Jeffrey? and we could
bring him
talk.
in a few if you want.
Yeah, Jeffrey, we'll bring in a couple of minutes, and we'll add you to the conversation as we're
I
going
mean, if
through
he's
it.
up for it, I don't want to catch him off guard.
Yeah,
And if he
let us
wants to
know.
go on, I don't know if you want to bring him on in a few minutes. That's fine.
Yeah, definitely.
Give him a minute to get a glass of water.
Martin is saying Jane Seymour went on to play Dr. Quinn. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, she was Dr. Quinn for quite a while. You were talking about, I kind of got sidetracked there. We were talking about the TV guide ads for Battlestar Galactica. And on my Facebook page, I did post a picture of the Frazetta artwork.
Yes.
Frank Frazetta did the first few episodes, teased him in TV guide. And he was such a strange choice, I thought, because he was all about, like, he did all the Conan the Barbarian and the Tarzan, cover art and stuff. And that's the guys with the sinews and the biceps and, the scantily clad women and the demons. And but instead he's got like Starbuck and Apollo but he has them all. I mean, the sleeves are all ripped off, and you can tell it's Frazetta, but very distinctive artwork. He used to he lived in the Poconos. I don't know if you know this or not.
Frazetta is right up in East Stroudsburg. In fact, Marianne is out there, and yeah, I've actually been in that shop. Have you ever been up there? Have you ever been?
I have not. I've been to the museum. I don't know if it still exists, but there was a museum there that they had of his artwork. But that was, I think he was still alive when I went to the museum. His wife was there. I met his wife, but I never met him.
They both passed.
Yeah,
it's been some time, but yeah.
Apparently, she was the model for a lot of his female characters. Yeah.
Alan, welcome to the show tonight. Great to see you out there. Saying good evening, gents. Roy, you are on a roll this week with two of my favorite shows, from first The Outer Limits and now Classic Galactica. Happy to hear that, Alan. Yeah, these shows were great, and I'll tell you, they never get old. Ross and I were just talking because Ross recently just got the series, and you got it on. Now, did you get it on Blu-ray, Ross, or did you get it on DVD?
No, I don't have a Blu-ray player. I got it on DVD.
DVD.
This is the one I got. I don't know if I'm allowed to show it or not. Or
yeah, absolutely.
I can't.
There you go.
This is the one I got, and it's not cut up. The one of the sets has the scenes cut out that they cut out for the. I don't know if it was on Sci-Fi or A&E or who showed it, but and then they put them on as extras. I think this has them all in, and they're single-sided discs. They're not the double-sided, so I was happy about that. But yeah, I mean, I'll watch them, and I should just raffle it off to one of the viewers. So I'll probably only watch them once, but.
Martin's busting your chops. He's saying the Walmart edition.
There you go.
And he also commented the original Viper artwork was supposed to be the one that was eventually used in Buck Rogers. There you go.
Yeah. Now that was a show what's that? That was a
Alan,
show I couldn't really get behind, but I don't want to alienate anybody.
Oh. That Serena being ill was kept in Marvel's original pilot adaptation they released in Treasury Edition, if I recall correctly. Oh, okay. Now, Phil commented back a ways, and I didn't get an opportunity to post it, but he was actually talking about, and I'm going to go back to his comment. It was a little lengthy, but Phil had commented. He said the Marvel Comics version of the show got better after the show got canceled. They let the comic alone and let Walt Simonson write whatever he wanted at the end, and it got quite good before the comic was canceled. I spoke to Walt quite a bit about this. It was one of those moments of creative freedom worth checking out. Just the last 4 or 5 issues. I love the way Walt wrote the character Jolly. Also, look up the cover art for the issue called Starbuck's Back. Amazing, fun artwork. Thanks for posting that earlier too, Phil.
Yeah, that was often the case. I've got to go. I know I have a few of the Battlestar Galactica comics. I'll have to go back and look at them.
Yeah.
Haven't done that in decades. Probably since they came out.
Oh, Matt commented, Marion Jensen, Deadly Blessing rules.
There you go.
I want to show. I'm going to go back to presenting some of the effects here. So let me do that. Now, the battle stars. I mean, I'll tell you that when it opens up, the opening of the movie, it's pretty majestic. I mean, you see the five battle stars, and it really, I mean, between Stu Phillips's music playing and the intensity of seeing the five battle stars like that in formation, it looks like a solid fleet. I mean, it's very impressive, and it really draws you in, and it's a very strong opening with that, and then the rest is history, as they say. And I took a couple shots of the Vipers just to remind viewers what those look like.
There you go.
The Cylon Raiders.
Yeah, the ships look cool. Yeah.
And then, of course, the Cylon, or the Cylons. And then there's the Imperious Leader. Now, interesting enough, though, you really don't get to see the Imperious Leader close up like that.
He's like a fruit bat. What is he?
Well, he's reptilian, is what he is.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting though, because you have to wonder all those times, Baltar is up on that pedestal. I mean, we used to joke about it. It's like, he'll turn and he'll be facing the wall, and it's just like he's up there, and it's like, what is he doing?
Yeah, I mean? What's he facing? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he's meditating. And this is a photo I wanted to show. And this was with Richard Hatch at the Chiller Theater. And this was back in April 2007. In fact, it was interesting, too, because what happened was Shari and I started dating in December of 2006. And what happened was I took her to the Chiller convention, which was not a Star Trek convention, but it was probably the closest thing to a Star Trek convention without bringing her to a Star Trek convention at that time. And Richard Hatch was there. And I had met him, like I said, at the Space 1999 convention 7 years earlier. And he remembered the event, and he said, it was a really good show and everything. And we just talked for a little bit. And he asked me if I had watched the new Battlestar Galactica, and I said I had not. And he said, really, give it a try. He said, the writing is really good. He had a recurring character that later, he was playing in it. But really, really nice guy. And I was really happy to have had the opportunity to have met him. And then what he did was he sealed Shari and I for one day. He did like a ritual. When you're getting sealed, it means you're getting married. And what happened was he did that. And it was kind of cool. So anyway.
And that's recognized where?
That's recognized in Battlestar Galactica. It's in the whatchamacallit, the next, actually the second episode. It's called the
right.
What is it? The
I know what you're saying. Yeah. But hey, baby, let's get sealed. This holds up in no court.
It wasn't about that.
In no earthly court. Yeah.
The other thing I want to do is I want to mention is all roads do lead to Star Trek with Battlestar Galactica. And of course, with John Colicos, he was in the Star Trek episode in 1967, the first season, playing Core. And interesting enough, he was supposed to come back for The Trouble with Tribbles, which was in the second season. But what happened was he was not available because he had other acting engagements going on. So what they did was they brought William Campbell back from having done Trelane in The Squire of Gothas. And then what he did was he played Koloff. And then they wanted him to come back in the third season in Day of the Dove, but he was not available because of acting, other work. And what they did was they cast Michael Ansara to play Kang. And again, he would have been in it. However, with Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which was taking place almost 30 years later, he reprised the role as Core in 3 episodes of Star Trek. So I thought that was really kind of cool.
That's cool.
So there you go with that. Warren is out there. Hey, Warren. He said, just don't get caught hanging out with the social later, which was the profession of Cassiopeia. Thanks for joining, Warren. And I see Martin commented and said, yes, it became the agricultural ship. Sounds more like an asteroid. I'm not sure what he's talking about. Oh, it's reference to Silent Running. I think one of the ships in the fleet was the Valley Forge. Yes.
There exactly. You go. Yeah.
It was the agro ship. Yep. Yeah. Universal. The Universal tie-in. So, but in regards to Let me see here. John Dykstra. We were talking about him a little earlier, Ross, and right
Mhm.
there is the Star Wars connection.
Right.
All roads lead to Star Wars.
Yeah, and we already told his story, kind of.
Right.
Yeah, he did start his own special effects company then once he left ILM called Apogee Inc., Apogee Incorporated, and he worked on such films as Life Force.
You mean the movie that stars Patrick Stewart?
Exactly, Roy.
As
Yeah,
opposed to, I can't do that.
exactly. Matilda May.
Matilda May. My God, yeah.
Yeah, Matilda May.
Matilda May.
Yeah, and Dykstra, the recipient of 3 Academy Awards, 2 for Star Wars, because of the visual effects and because of he got a Special Achievement Award for in addition. There you go, Matilda May, and yeah, that always wakes everyone up.
Yeah.
When we hit a longer on the show, and he won for his work on Spider-Man 2, which I assume is wasn't it Sam Raimi? Wasn't that the one?
Yes,
With
and I did not
Tobey
realize that he
Maguire.
worked on that. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, worked on a lot of stuff. So he bounced back. But you know what? The hell of it is, he went through the whole thing with, there was the interpersonal stuff, with him getting in trouble with his employer, George Lucas. Then there was the whole thing with the lawsuits and all that, uh, where it looked like Battlestar Galactica got they threw out the suit against Battlestar Galactica at first. But then Lucas goes and does the special editions of the movies, of the Star Wars movies, with the first one with the Academy Award winning effects by John Dykstra. And he goes and he digitizes everything and changes it. So basically, Dykstra and his colleagues, all the Academy Award winning work that they put into that film is now lost. If you don't have the VHS or if you don't have those, talk about the Walmart editions, they put out, there was, where they were like kind of the bonus features
Right.
on one of the special editions. There was a short run of those. But yeah, we have not seen John Dykstra's effects in Star Wars since, the late 90s or whenever they came out with the special editions.
Which is really a shame.
Thanks,
It's
George. Yeah.
it's
One of
it's
my one of my heroes has become the villain.
right, right.
Yeah.
No,
So,
it's tragic in regards to that.
yeah.
I just saw another comment. Warren said they used a lot of stock footage from the Universal Archive. Yeah, they did. William said, Roy, as I recall, Bob Justman also wasn't enthused about the idea of a recurring Klingon villain on Star Trek. Yeah, I remember. I think I vaguely remember hearing that. Warren is saying the definitive Laserdisc edition with that stuff. Now,
I never did have it. But,
Glenn A. Larson, you talk about a laundry list of shows that he created. My God, I mean, not only Battlestar Galactica, of course, you mentioned too late, and this is the thing I realize now in regards to Battlestar Galactica, the bridge set, I believe, was a huge portion of that budget because that bridge, those monitors actually worked. I mean, there was write-ups, I remember, in the different magazines discussing that, how you could go to the different panels and you could actually, go to those computers and it would actually effectively do some type of, work, we'll say.
let's play thermoglobal nuclear war.
No, but I mean,
wrong movie. Yeah.
yeah. But in regards to that, though, there was a lot of money spent, and it was effective in that sense.
Global thermonuclear. Yeah.
But no, not thermonuclear. I'm talking about the bridge. and
I'm still thinking about Matthew Broderick.
No, there you go.
As we all are. Yeah.
Actually, that's another movie, Ross. That came out in 1983. That's up for a 40-year anniversary.
Is it really 40 years? Yeah. I caught it on TCM a number of years back. It must have been 7-8 years at this point. But yeah, it's another one of those movies where it seemed like yesterday, but it's like, oh my goodness, a lot of time has passed.
I've never seen that movie from beginning to end.
No, really. Dabney Coleman, still in it. I mean, still in it. Of course, he's still in it, but he still looks like Dabney Coleman, as he did. It seemed forever, but now I don't know. Is he still around? I forget if he's still with
I
us.
think
He's pretty old now.
Dabney Coleman, my guess is he's probably got to be in his 90s or at least
Yeah,
early 90s, and
yeah,
I believe he is still with
he's
us.
still with us. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he was in everything,
Yeah.
for
But
something. Yeah.
in regards to Glenn A. Larson, though, I mean, the list is, it's just, I mean, there was Knight Rider, BJ and the Bear, Quincy, Nancy
Right.
Drew and Hardy Boys,
Right.
Magnum PI.
Magnum PI, right?
Do you remember Switch with Eddie Albert and RJ, Robert Wagner?
And the Fall Guy.
The Fall Guy with Lee Majors.
Lee Majors, yeah.
Heather Thomas.
Now, he took a lot of flack too for all of his success, because he got called out because a lot of his shows were kind of derivative of other shows that were successful, and Harlan Ellison called him Glenn Larceny. and I guess he was notorious for kind of reusing scripts between shows. James Garner was talking about how like some of the scripts for the Rockford Files were reused for other shows, and he would just change the names of the characters. And since Garner was a producer on the show, he called him out on it a couple of times. But apparently, and Larson would then they'd have to give the credit to the correct writers. But then he would go and do it again. So he came onto the set of Magnum PI one day, I guess, and put his arm around Gardner. Did you read this?
No, I didn't.
And said, "Oh, you're not really mad at me, are you? You're not still mad at me." And he said, take your hand off me. And Larson didn't take his hand off him, but apparently Garner punched him so hard. Apparently he went through a trailer.
Oh my goodness.
So there you go.
Wow.
And now this, apparently it's in Garner's autobiography. So
interesting.
If you think I'm telling tales out of school, go to your local library and look up James Garner's autobiography. Yeah, Buck Rogers, exactly.
Yep.
Manimal.
Yeah, the Manimal.
Manimal. So Larson was nominated for several television awards. He, for Quincy and for Battlestar Galactica. But oddly, he was nominated for the music because, like Gene Roddenberry with the theme to Star Trek, he wound up sharing a credit with the show's composer, Stu Phillips. Because Glenn A. Larson actually he's kind of a closet musician. He had a folk group. Did you know about this?
No, I didn't.
A folk music group? Yeah. It was the what do they call themselves? The Four Preps. The Four Preps. Yeah, apparently they were on television all the time. They were singing on on Leave It to Beaver, and they were turning up on all these variety shows. And yeah. So he had written songs and been performing with members of this group for a long time before Galactica came out. So he had some hand in the composing of the show's theme. So just like Roddenberry put lyrics to Star Trek that we never hear.
Yeah.
Apparently he came up with a certain part of the theme for Battlestar Galactica. I may have worked on some of the music, but Stu Phillips was the composer. Yeah.
Right. No, I was not aware of that.
Yeah. So he's nominated for that.
One of the things, William Graffer, Michael Landon also famously recycled scripts for Bonanza for Little House on the Prairie. There's a tie-in right there with Lauren Green. Jerry said, fleeing from the silent tyranny, the last Battlestar Galactica leads a ragtag feudal fleet on a lonely quest, a shining planet known as Earth.
Yes.
Yeah. Warren is saying, I'm late, but did you guys discuss the proverbial middle finger that Dykstra gave to Glenn Larson in an effects scene over Caprica? No.
What is it?
Yeah, let us know, Warren.
So Dykstra had a beef with Larson too. It's a rough business.
Yeah. Jeff Rubel's asking, was Larson the one who used a Bionic Woman script for an episode of the Gemini Man?
I don't know.
I don't know. I
don't know, but apparently he was thrifty.
I will say, on a positive note, Liz said War Games is a great film. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Liz. We appreciate that. And Warren saying, I'm still thinking about Matilda May. Oh boy. Yes, and Martin, you're right. The bridge also moved. Yeah, and you know what? They didn't do that often, but they did it a few times, and they used it as a plot device where, to add excitement to the scene. It was done in the first. I believe it was done in the. Well, it was done in the movie. It was done in the pilot, but it was not done very regularly, and I think it was done in one of the later. I think actually it was done in the last episode, the Hand of God. I mean, there could have been other episodes.
You know what I love? Anytime there's going to be a really big explosion, they ask to open the blast shield on the viewer. When you do the opposite, it's like, oh, let's see what's going on over at the Battlestar. Ooh.
Well,
okay, close
right before the Atlantia, when the Atlantia
yeah.
is just about ready to blow up. He says, negative shield, and then they open it, and then they see it explode. And
and the same thing with the planet at the end.
Yes.
Open the shield so we can see this. And they go, oh, my retina. It's like Oppenheimer.
Did you have the opportunity to see that?
Yes, I did.
Yes. Actually, you and I talked about that. I forgot. You did see it.
Yeah,
I forgot. Yeah,
we did.
Yeah, it's on the list. It's on the list of things.
It's on the list. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
So, and I need somebody, whether it be you or Jeffrey when he comes on, I need somebody to explain to me what happens. Well, I was so discombobulated by the fact that they broke away for this breaking news with Sadat and Begin, and they kept us on pins and needles for over an hour back in '78 to get back to the climax of the movie. And it happened right at the point where they're going to have that last battle. What was Adama's point? He sends everybody down in the uniforms,
right?
So that they think all the warriors are down in the casino on the Ovion, mines or what have you. And then so you expect that all the warriors are actually secretly back on the Battlestar, waiting to engage the Cylon, fleet that's coming to close in on Galactica. But no, they're still down on the planet's surface. So what is that?
No. No. Here's the.
What is that about?
No,
explain it.
Here's the thing, Ross. No, I will explain it.
Explain it.
The warriors. I'm trying to. Can you hear me?
I've got an inquiring mind, Roy. I need to know what happened here.
Are we having a bad connection here?
Always.
What happened was they wanted to make sure at that party that they had the uniforms being accounted for by the Ovions and the Cylons. So they were sending everybody down there with that. Meanwhile, what they did was the actual warriors, Blue Squadron, Red Squadron, Purple Squadron.
Exactly.
What happened was those warriors were told that they were going to be on a mission. They were going to be deployed when necessary, but they were actually on the planet. They were not.
Why were they not on the Battlestar? It makes no sense. If they're there to defend the ship, they have to go all the way back. Yeah.
Because what they were anticipating was that the Cylons were going to do an attack force, and Adama even says it that if there was any type of
they were going to get the landing bays and they couldn't get out. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, and that's why they did it. Plus, they wanted to have the warriors like Starbuck, Apollo, and Boomer. They had some ships down on the planet as well for them. But actually, I see Jeffrey's out there, so I'm going to have him jump in just to
bring him on.
We'll discuss this. So
I need some insights.
Hey, Jeffrey, how's it going?
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. We'll have you talk about everything in regards to the documentary, but join us on this discussion though of Battlestar Galactica. So Ross is posing the question in regards to the first pilot, the movie, and I was trying to explain to him my particular take on it. He was confused at the end why the warriors are not on the Battlestar, and he's questioning if they were on the planet and why on the Caroline. Thank you.
Caroline. Let's see. So what happened was the warriors were all on board the Galactica still, right?
Right.
And so they put civilians in the warriors' clothing down on the planet.
Right.
right? In order to fake them out, right, and everything. So they thought that everybody was down there and they could attack them, right? Is that part of what you're talking about? Yeah.
Well, that's the part that I get. Yeah. But then at the end, I don't know how long it's been since you've seen it.
Yeah.
When the Cylons are all attacking the Battlestar, the Warriors are still down on the planet, even though they didn't have they sent everybody with the uniforms into the casino on Caroline.
Oh, I know. I get what it is. The pilots weren't still on the Battlestar. I think the pilots were down there hanging out. I think that's what it was by their planes, by the Vipers.
Yes.
Right. So in other words, they had the civilians in the casino,
right,
wearing the Warrior uniforms, making them think that and I think they had the Vipers hit. I think the idea was that the Vipers were hidden. You know what the truth is, Ross? It was 1978, and it probably wasn't that well written.
That's what I thought.
It's probably what we're dealing with here. It's probably.
We're trying to defend this show from 45
We're trying to defend this show from 1978 where they were kind of just making stuff up,
But we still loved it. So
yeah, but we still loved it. And you know what? I guess at the time I didn't question it, and everything. But I should watch it again. I'm sure that it was probably a little loosey goosey. I think it's worth what you're saying.
It is funny though, because I went back and watched it, this week, and I hadn't seen it since I guess I saw it in the movies, when they re-released it as a movie, but. Last time I saw it, I was 12 years old, and I think it held up better than I thought it would.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, and I thought it was pretty solid. I didn't think it was the greatest, science fiction.
Oh, but that's the thing. It's like Galactica to me. It's, honestly, I mean, people debate reboots, like are reboots necessary? Should they happen? And that sort of thing, right? I really, really believe that Battlestar Galactica had a lot of good ideas in it. But ultimately, it suffered from. It was very, very unbalanced, right? In terms of, if you think about it, you've got. By the way, I actually was one of these kids. I liked in 6th grade. I got into fights actually because I liked Galactica more than Star Wars, which people, that was like complete blasphemy among my friends that I liked it more, and everything. But I really liked Battlestar Galactica because it felt like. Well, you can look right behind me. Like you see the Viper right over here, right? You see that, right? It's like, I absolutely love the designs and I like the characters. I was way into that whole triumvirate of Starbuck, Apollo, Boomer. I thought they were super, and they all kind of, it was almost like they were like a Kirk, Spock, McCoy of Battlestar in a way, because they all had completely different vibes to them in the way they worked and handled. So
they were like the trio.
Yeah, exactly. But I also loved. I thought that Colonel Ty and Adama were super cool. It was a really cool. But if you think about it, that show from a premise wise, it was an incredibly dark premise. This destruction and basically genocide of humanity, right? And then they were just having so many sort of. But then we're joking around and we're having fun and start. It tried to be this family show with this very, very dark premise to it. It was kind of unbalanced in that way, I think, in a certain way. And I feel like I understood why they rebooted it, and I still recommend that Roy watch it, the reboot, because I think that there was a core, really interesting concept there that still had room to be developed further. And so, Ross, did you ever see the reboot at all?
I have not seen.
Not seen it. Okay.
Not seen the reboot.
So what I would tell you guys is, it's got a slightly shaky start, but once it gets going, I'm talking about the mini series, but once you get into the actual series itself, the first 2.5 seasons are some of the best television ever made. It's really, really well done. It's very intelligent. And so it takes the core premise of that series and it sort of irons out sort of the problems and the inconsistencies and turns it into something much bigger and much greater. So yeah. So I recommend it to you guys. I recommend it. And this is a guy who was a huge fan of the original.
No, and it's definitely on the list. And Martin commented too, and he made the comment, and it's true. What Adama says to Ty, because, and to your point too, the relationship and the dynamics that they had, Jeffrey and Ross, where they really trusted each other. I mean, that scene where they're in the launching bay too is really cool. Where they climb into the Vipers and they're like thinking back in the past when they were like when they were warriors and they were fighter pilots, and how things have evolved and everything. But as Adama is giving the pitch to Boomer, he's saying about how are we going to get the ships down to Caroline, and he's saying we can launch a few at a time as though they're part of a routine patrol.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is that's what they're doing, off to the side, and then when the Cylons do wind up attacking, they can go out there and get them. But
well, they came they came and attacked them from below, basically, right? They surprised them coming in. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So, hey, did you guys? I wasn't here for the whole thing. Did you guys touch on the fact that when the pilot aired, it was interrupted by
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was just devastating for.
It was a long night, Jeffrey, and we were talking.
Your parents let you stay up?
My parents let me stay up. My parents
let
me stay up, and they let me watch the rest of it. So
yeah, mine too.
Yeah,
so,
which is great. Yeah. But man, it was like I was horrified. I was like, what is happening right now? So I will never forget that, because I had, I would say that the waiting for the pilot of Galactica was probably the second biggest anticipation Sci-Fi might. I've spoken about the fact that I saw the preview for Space 1999 the summer before it came on. When I was just so excited for Galactica, for this TV series, and everything. So when it finally came on, and then to see it get interrupted by that peace treaty sign, I was just like, yeah. So,
and Joe, Ross's cousin Joe, who was and that's how I got to meet Ross back in the day, from high school and everything. And Joe and I have been friends since the 5th grade. This is going back to 76.
Okay.
Joe was telling me a lot about Galactica. Because he was a huge Star Wars fan, and he was saying that the series is coming out. It's being anticipated. It was in the Starlog magazines. It was in the other magazines. And I remember we were out during the day, and it was a Sunday afternoon. And the irony is, today is September 17th, and it's a Sunday night. It was a Sunday night back in September 17th in 1978. So stars are aligned that literally 45 years ago today, now, date and date, we were the three of us were three of us were watching Battlestar Galactica. And it's really cool to think about. But
absolutely.
I remember,
yes, I didn't even think about that. So that's 45 years ago today. Wow.
Yes, exactly.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
But
wow. I was a huge fan. There were some aspects of it that were really, if I'm honest with you, and I'm not somebody who talks a lot about race stuff, but I will tell you guys, the fact that show had Boomer and Colonel Ty in it, where watching Star Wars, there just wasn't, there was nobody looked like me in Star Wars, in Star Wars, the New Hope, I don't think that, looking back and you hear more information, I think George Lucas had the goal to put some more diversity into it, but it just didn't work out. And I've been there. I get it now. I get how that happens. Right. But that show, having the mix of people that it did, that was a huge deal for me, watching that as a kid and seeing that. And these were also just great role models. This was back at the time where, heroes had their stuff together, yeah, Starbuck had his little womanizing thing and stuff like that, but these guys were tight. They had it together. And that's the one thing that I feel is missing from a lot of our sci-fi these days, today's stuff, is that, I look back on that, the fun of that show, how cool the characters were, how competent they were, how much they trusted each other. There's something I have in one of my dreams is to make a series that has some of the DNA of that now, with that has that feeling to it. I think there was a fun that Galactica had, barring the premise, the darkness of the premise itself, but there was a lot of fun there, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to speak to that for a second. There are a couple things that really,
we appreciate that. And that's what we were talking about earlier too, that filmmakers are influenced by a lot of the things that they experienced when they were growing up. And what happens is if it makes a lasting impression on you, you as a filmmaker 20, 30 years down the road will be have that impression, and then you'll make a product and then hope, bring that to the screen. And it's kind of tying into what you're saying.
No question. I mean, I could go on and on about the things in Galactica that were influential for me. I mean, there's so many cool aspects of that show, from the costume design to the casting, the characters, the look and feel of it, this aircraft carrier in space thing. There was something about that was just so cool, and I still to this day, I think the Galactica, the design of that ship is incredible. I love that ship. I'm a huge fan. I think it still stands up to today. I think the visual effects are awesome. they might have gotten a little repetitive, but it was TV. It was a TV show. They didn't have an unlimited budget to keep blowing stuff up. So
one of my favorite scenes in that movie too is right at the end too, when they're Carolyn is destroyed and then they're heading back to the Galactica, and then they say let's go home. And then they both, the one, Apollo goes on the left and Starbuck goes on the right, and they're heading into the landing bay, and you're seeing it as they're approaching it. And it's just executed in a really cool manner.
Oh, it was amazing. And I think John Dykstra and the team did such a good job on the visual effects of that. And again, to do that in a TV show at a TV show budget was incredible. It was really cool.
Yeah. So, lots of comments coming through, by the way, too. Just folks commenting about the reboot and the movie and everything, and just adding to the commentary. So they're jumping on board with you about that, Jeffrey. So very cool.
Well, and by the way, guys, I'm not, I could have a whole podcast about why I don't like the Star Trek stuff since 2009. So so if I'm telling you guys that this is a reboot that's worth watching, it really is, in my book, worth watching. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, definitely take that into consideration. Definitely check it out. Unfortunately for myself, I was giving it a chance to watch the very first episode. And what happened was I can't even tell you what happened, but there was a lot of distractions. There was a lot of interruptions, and I didn't get to watch it from beginning to end. And then what happened was, after that, I just kind of fell off and didn't go back to it. But with everything that you said, and then a lot of folks have said, I will definitely check it out in the near future, though. And
sure.
Sounds good. I just want to share one thing, and then we'll go right into it. Ross, can you just, in regards to Stu Phillips, it's the one thing we just didn't touch upon in regards to.
If you want to do that quickly, we can do it. Sure.
Yeah.
All right. He's still alive, by the way, Stu Phillips.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He just turned 94. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
What a great composer. What a great composer.
Again, going back to it now, I actually was more impressed with it than I was when I was younger.
Great. It's a great soundtrack. Yeah. It's just, I guess Star Wars was too close or something, or I don't know what it was, but now that I've got distance, I can appreciate these things a little more. So he studied music at New York's High School of Music and Art, and then at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester. He worked as an arranger and a record producer. He started his own label called Colpix Records, and at that label, he worked with James Darren. He worked with Nina Simone, with the Monkees. He wound up writing some television music for the Monkees and for the Donna Reed Show. And for movies, he did a movie called, one of his early big movies was Ride the Wild Surf with Fabian and Tab Hunter. So there's a time capsule for you. He also wrote the music for Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. So he worked with Russ Meyer on a couple of films. And then he got involved with Glenn A. Larson, and he did music for $6 Million Man and Buck Rogers and The Fall Guy and Knight Rider. And also he did the theme and worked on, we just talked about McCloud earlier. So he worked on McCloud. Not the NBC mystery. You mentioned Knight Rider. Yeah, you did mention that.
Yeah. So not the NBC mystery movie, the one that they aired in the rotation wheel that we talked about that had Columbo and McMillan and Wife and what have you. But the show itself, it was this McCloud. He did the music for that. The Battlestar Galactica album was nominated for a Grammy. As I said, Glenn A. Larson was co-nominated with Stu Phillips for co-writing the music for the show. And that's basically all I really have for Stu Phillips. So he had a very prolific career as a producer and arranger, and he did a lot for television, did some feature films, and he's still with us at 94.
Wow. God bless
Did you
him.
ever hear the story about how, obviously there was a lot of tension between the two productions, between the Star Wars, kind of post-Star Wars team and the Galactica team, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but John Williams was so concerned that Stu Phillips was going to rip off the Star Wars themes and soundtrack that John Williams was actually present in the recording studio, in the booth when they were recording the Galactica soundtrack. He was standing there. Yes. Yeah. It's an interesting story. Yeah. And then I guess he was surprised that it obviously if you listen to the two, they don't have any sort of resonance to them, which is really cool. You know? But ultimately, it was interesting. John Williams had the Boston Pops actually did Battlestar Galactica theme as one of their tracks at one point, and that was sort of his way of sort of relinquishing, like, okay, this was now he gave his little spin to it. He was a little different, John Williams did, but I think that's a cool anecdote. So
yeah. John Williams, you normally think of being so like laid back about everything.
Yeah.
It's like,
you're supposedly he was not laid back about this.
But you're right. He did include the theme on the one album that he recorded with the Pops. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's still Galactica theme. Actually, for me, is one of I think the original Galactica. I think that's one of the best sci-fi themes of all time. I still think it's a fantastic theme. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's epic. It's larger than life. It really, really is. Don Bethman commented, one of the things he said is, I just remember getting the Scholastic copy of Dynamite magazine with Battlestar on the cover.
I had that. Yeah.
And let me see here. Looks like Warren made a comment, and he said hi before. The 4-hour pilot is a slog, but the very first episode, 33, is an amazing piece of television as well.
That's what I was saying to you guys. It kind of it's a little bit rough to get through the pilot, the miniseries. But once you get to the first episode, it just takes off. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, but you got to watch the pilot, or you don't know what's going on. That's who everybody is and stuff. So,
Jeffrey, I have to ask you though, did you feel it was similar but different, or was it totally different, or
the Galactica reboot?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. It's different in tone in that it's very mature. It's very adult in a lot of ways. It deals with it's unflinching when it comes to certain aspects. It deals with issues of violence and there's they get into the psychology of war, the psychology of the impacts of this on I mean, one of the things that I think is missing from the original series, right, is the idea of like, okay, I mean, I just want you guys to think about this. Imagine we're on a flight. We get in a flight. We get on a plane in JFK, and we're going to fly to Chicago. And all of a sudden, we find out that flight, we're never going to get off that plane until we figure it out. Right? The thing about that's the premise of Galactica. Basically, that's what they're doing in this, in at least the reboot. The idea that it's the people who are all on ships that didn't get attacked, that have survived, that become the fleet. Right? If that makes sense, right? So you only have the people who were just kind of stuck. So they're stuck with whatever they had and whatever, right? Because the colonies are gone. So if whatever you had in your, briefcase or suitcase or whatever, that's all you've got.
Yeah.
And now we're living on this airplane. We live here. That's our life, is on this airplane. I mean, I think they get a little bit into the darkness of that and how intense that is in the psychology of it and everything. And I think that being that and also I would say that this show has, being post 9/11, it resonates some with that. The Iraq War definitely has become something. So in some ways you get a little bit of Roddenberryism in the new Galactica, where where we're doing some social commentary. We're able to talk about some ideas, some stuff that wasn't present in the original Galactica at all. So I would say that. But I would say that the core of having this aircraft carrier in space and these warriors and Vipers and battling the Cylons, they don't do it every episode. It's not trying to have it all. But when they do have space battles, there's a point, and it's extremely well done.
Okay.
Right? It's extremely well made, and so there is quite a bit of space stuff in it, and there's some sci-fi stuff, but they de-cheese it. It's not. It's much more rooted. There's no aliens in this show, none whatsoever, and and the Cylons in this case are a human construct. In the new series, so it's a different thing. So it's more about the idea that humans made the Cylons, and the Cylons have now turned on us, and they're coming back. And that's
AI.
So that's very different. But I think it resonates. I remember there was interesting. Edward James Olmos, who does a fantastic job playing Commander Adama. He made a comment at one point. He said the second there's a bug-eyed monster on the show, I'm out of here. Because Yeah, he really said that because it wasn't because what they were doing is they're talking so much in that series about the human condition.
Yeah,
it becomes a deep, and I said the first 2.5 seasons because after that, there's something I call it, like it has so much mythology that it starts to kind of buckle under the weight of the mythology they've created.
okay.
So kind of up to the first 2.5 seasons, it all works. And then after that, you're like, wait, what's going on here? It starts to get a little bit too much, but I highly recommend that at least through there. It's really great. It's really, really worth watching. So anyway, some of the basic elements are there, and it feels similar. And the characters are. I'm not going to say they're similar. They're not. Apollo has some similarities to the original Apollo. Well, also, that Richard Hatch is in it.
Yes, I did know that. In fact, I was saying earlier that I actually had an opportunity to meet Richard Hatch twice. He was at the Main Mission Space 1999 convention in 2000 in New York City. And then also in 2007, he was at Chiller Theater, which is in New Jersey twice a year. In fact, I brought my wife, Shari, there, and we had the opportunity to meet. And I had even said to him at that time, because he asked me if I watched Galactica, and I said, I didn't. And I told him the story how I saw a little bit of it only the one time. And he said what you just said, essentially. He said, definitely give it a try. He said, it really is good. It's well written.
Yeah.
And he said, he says, I really think you'll like it, but you have to give it, the moment.
I would say once it gets going, there's more character development and more, they pack in one episode of that show, more content in terms of emotion and character and development than some series have in like a half season.
Wow.
And yeah, it's really, I really mean that. I really mean that. So yeah.
No, it's good to know.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, I'm gonna go to the shout outs, and before let me just get this on the screen real quick. I just want to say real quick, today is Sandy Gimple's birthday, and she played Sela in Battlestar Galactica. She was actually on the show last week. She was in, as folks know, in classic Star Trek. She was in the Man Trap. She was a Salt Vampire, and then also she was involved in the episode, the first pilot of The Cage, playing a Telosian. But anyway, we were actually trying to see if she could have been on the show, but she's away for her birthday, and definitely want to wish her a very, very happy birthday. And she's a wonderful guest, and she was the leader of the Ovions in this first episode.
Wow.
Which is cool. And Jeffrey, if you can tell us and tell the folks out there, definitely want to have you back again just to give an update, because there's so much stuff going on in regards to the documentary The Eagle Has Landed with the Kickstarter. I mean, it launched on Wednesday, and it is going in full steam, and there's a lot of information to convey, and it's just wonderful to be able to give the folks out there some updates on it.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you having me to be able to talk about it. And I also really appreciate you guys including me a little bit in your Galactica discussion, just simply because it's a topic I've had some passion for, which is great.
No.
So as far as the Eagles Landed goes, we're very happy with how the campaign is going. It's on a good trajectory. We've raised over $66,000 since Wednesday. And so our target is a hefty target, which is $500,000, but we still have 25 days to go, so we feel we can get it done. Bottom line is we've had a lot of great feedback. We've been the people with Jerry Anderson, the official Jerry Anderson website and the podcast, all the stuff. We've been part of all that. They've been very, very generous with their praise of the project and sharing it with the fans, which has been fantastic. When the day we launched, we were in space.com, which went out to 2.8 million readers, which was fantastic. We have there's been a lot of press. I've been doing a lot of podcasts. There's been a lot of content and discussion that's been happening. So I think this is being well received, which I think is fantastic. I'm really, really pleased about it. I think people have been able to see what we intend to do and what we hope to do with this documentary. And I also feel like we've been able to some degree, also pull some fans together from some different groups, together around this project, which is exciting. Yesterday, I just did a podcast with the Eagle Meetup group in the UK, which was super cool. And next week, I'm going to be doing a longer session with them and talking about the history of the Eagle and everything. So, and I'm definitely including them in the documentary and trying to get them together with Brian Johnson for a segment of it as well. So that's all happening. But generally speaking, I'm just really pleased with the response. There's been super positive feedback on what we intend to do. There have been some questions, which I'm happy to talk about with you guys and address also here a little bit. Every chance I get to talk about this, I want people to understand sort of the whys of what we're doing and how it's all working and everything. But before I go any further, that's kind of the brief overview. Everything.
No,
so
thank you for that. And just, for the folks out there who aren't aware, now this is not a documentary on Space 1999. This is a documentary on the Eagle from Space 1999, which in essence is really a character of its own from the show.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we had a great conversation yesterday about the fact that if you think about it, it's kind of the third character, the third main, right? You think about the opening credits, even the first season, you've got Martin Landau, Barbara Bain, and then we see an eagle, right? Right? I mean, it's the eagle is absolutely inherent, a huge aspect of this series, and it's as much a star of the show as the Enterprise was in the original Star Trek. If you think about it, the eagle was, and I know for myself and for millions of other people, we tuned in to see eagles. That was a big part of what it was about, was to watch it. But I think, beyond that, as I've said many times, what I feel the real core of this documentary is about is the idea that the eagle represented a future, an aspect of the future that we all thought, as especially a generation of young people, as we were when we watched that show. We all saw ourselves flying something like the eagle several decades in the future, right? Because it literally looked like it was a continuation of NASA technology that was happening in the 1960s and early 70s. And so to project that 20 years and 25 years in the future, it seemed completely believable and plausible and exciting. And I think that we held on to it because that future never happened. And I think all of us have held on to that eagle as a memento of that future that we didn't get to have in a lot of ways. So, there's a passion around this thing. And so for some people, it's even an obsession. It's there are collectors all around the world, all different walks of life, men, women, different race. It's amazing. And I think we've tapped a vein here that is unexpected. And I think from a cultural standpoint, I think there are a lot of people who have never even heard of it. Plenty of people never heard of Space 1999 who are going to see this and be surprised.
Yeah, and that's one of the wonders of the internet. And if you think about it, 30 years ago, there was no internet to the capacity that it is today. And even 20 years ago, I mean, obviously things were starting to develop, but you hear a lot of talk too about individuals saying, wow, you know what? I really liked that show and I really liked that component of it. And I really thought those spacecrafts were really cool. And then what happens is these people, like myself, in fact, find out that others felt the same way and had the passion about the show, had the passion about, the ships, the Eagle, the different components, and everybody kind of has networked together. But really, there's still a lot of folks out there that don't know. So the word is getting out, and it has been being put out there. And for those that don't have the internet or are kind of isolated from it, that's what's important, that there's different aspects of news media that are being conveyed, and the information is being put out. So have you found too that in your talks, a lot of folks that you've come across didn't know about others feeling that way initially?
I would agree with that. Yeah, that there are people who kind of thought their passion or interest in this was something that was sort of their own thing. Heck, I mean, it's not even like that. For me, it's like, at the time that, say, for example, I collected this one, right? I mean, I didn't know a bunch of other people who were into it as much as I am. I didn't, it's like, it was just my thing. But you're right. It's like getting on the internet, getting on Facebook, getting to know these different groups. You start to realize, my gosh, I'm not by myself in this at all. There was even a comment today when I was on the podcast with Todd and Gordon. Someone said, I don't feel alone. I'm no longer alone in this. Finding you guys helped me to realize I'm not alone in this, right? Which is really cool. So I think that that's something that's really, really exciting about this, is that, the other thing is, like, our website, I've tried with at eagledocumentary.com, I've tried to create a website that also allows for room for the fan voices. Literally, there's a section on the site where you can send in a photograph and tell us your story about loving eagles. And I mean, there are people, there's this guy down in Tucson, Arizona, who just happened to run into us, hear about it. And he's like, man, he's an actor. He's actually a Native American. He's on this TV series, Reservation Dogs on Hulu. This guy's an actor, right? It turns out he's like, sends me a picture. He's like, dude, I've got like 15 of those. Like, and he's got a room in his house with 15 Mattel Eagles in it.
Wow.
Okay? Right? Okay. I mean, specifically the Mattel Eagle, right? I mean, he's got like 15 of those, and I'm like, dude, what do you think it's about? He said, man, I just can't get enough. I love it. You know?
Yep.
And so but again, it's like, why? That's what this documentary is about. It's like, why? Why is Jan Vinneberg building a quarter scale eagle in his backyard? Why? That's a really, and it's not just because he's a bunch of crazy people. That's, of course not. There's something deeper going on here, and that's what this documentary is going to be about.
Yeah, so, and it really, the documentary too, Jeffrey. It's a journey, because you're meeting with the different folks. You're meeting with, Brian Johnson, who created the eagle. I mean, he's going to have a discussion with you, and you're going to be sitting down and talking about the intricacies of everything. I mean, how exciting is that? Because if you really, if you were to ask him 50 years ago, when all of this was being conceived, if he thought that 50 years later this would be a topic of discussion and something.
Oh, I know. How could you possibly have thought that?
Right.
Well,
exactly.
The part that blows my mind, I've actually mentioned that to Brian, but another thing for me is the fact that so I was sitting there watching this show, 50, how many years ago? 48 years ago. 48 years ago, right? And so I'm thinking about, I'm 55, so I'm thinking about right? So I was 7 years old, and I'm sitting here watching this show, and I'm thinking, and it blew my mind. And I was imagining, like, how could I possibly have thought that me sitting there watching this show as a 7-year-old, that all these years later, decades later, I would be talking with people like yourself, or meeting Brian, these people, these names that I'm seeing, these names I'm seeing in these credits, or like on Thursday of this week, I'm going to be having lunch with Barbara Bain. I mean, I would ever have thought that there would be people that even want to talk about this still, or that this would be a thing. I think it's incredible. And I think it's actually growing. I don't think it's waning. I think it's becoming bigger and bigger right now.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, because there's definitely been different levels with everything. And I think it's very interesting that you will be talking to Barbara Bain about this too, because I think that, and she was a guest that we had when we did the convention in 2019, and she was right here in this area in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and we had her and celebrating the series. And she was really touched by the fact that, and she even said, by the fact that it's, a group of people, about 125, 130 people coming together to remember a show that she was a part of. It really honored her, and it really touched her. But I don't think in recollection anybody's really talked about this component of it that you're going to be addressing. So it's really like new territory, and it's going to be.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I'm really specifically, I want to talk to her about what was it like to become part of something that was like a piece of the future, that was a story about the future. What was that like? How did you prepare for that? What was it like to be in those sets? Because the sets were so inclusive, right? They were so enclosed and so thorough. It was some of the most expensive. I think it was the most expensive television show at the time that had ever been made, right? And so certainly in the sci-fi realm, and to be on those sets and in that eagle and wearing those costumes and all that. What was that like? That's what I want to talk about, with her. And I think it'll be new territory, and I'm pretty excited about that and everything. So, I want to actually talk about a point. One of the things I like to use these conversations to do is to kind of address some of the questions or commentary critiques we've had along the line. And, one of the ones we've had are people have said things like, well, it seems like this guy's just wanting to spend $500,000 to travel around the world and talk to people. Well, I mean, number one, that's what documentaries are. We are traveling around and talking to people. I mean, I guess there's a way we could do a documentary where we just set up a backdrop and a neutral backdrop and have a talking head, and we talk back and forth like 60 minutes or something. I don't think that would do this story justice. I think we need to travel, and I think we need to see the breadth and width of the fandom and all those different perspectives and ideas. I think we need to travel there. And I think I want to bring Brian Johnson back to Bray Studios. I want to engage with a group of people, with groups of people, like we did at Wonderfest, like we did in Calgary, like, you know, hanging out with this meetup group in the UK. These are the people who are on the ground, who care about this and are passionate about it. I feel it's very important to travel and see these folks and everything. I think it's super important.
I'm just going to put up a comment that Martin said. Getting to see one of the filming miniatures in Calgary was fantastic, and that just ties into what you just said, Jeffrey. So, I mean, that's an example of that. And yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So the bottom line is this: I you know, am not I'm not taking any fees to make this documentary at this point. You know, just so you know, my producer's not taking any fees to make the documentary. We've done everything we can to bring it down to 500,000, and everyone needs to realize that this is a motion picture quality film that can be shown in the theater. That's the plan, and all the footage we've shot to date. Because, by the way, my company, we've already invested like $100 grand into this project to get it off the ground. So it's not like we don't have skin in the game on this.
Sure.
You know, and we're asking people to come in and help support this documentary because, you know, we're putting our money where our mouths are. You know, we're trying to show that we believe in this by investing in it. That's why we've already done 3 shoots with this documentary. We've already created new visual effects for this documentary. All that stuff is there, and some of it's seen in that Kickstarter video, of course. You know, the production company that I'm partnered with for the distribution of this, they felt that this documentary could not be made for less than $2.5 million. Okay, you think about how there are visual effects shots, a single visual effect shot. I think, Roy, you were in that conversation recently. There are visual effects shots that literally cost, you know, 5 times this amount, a single shot in Hollywood films, right?
And sometimes it doesn't even get to be shown too.
And some of it doesn't even, it gets on the cutting room floor. Exactly. And you look at Indiana Jones this summer, it just cost $300 million. Mission Impossible, $290 million, right? I mean, so, you know, so I know that in the Kickstarter community, there are people saying, I'm going to make this documentary for $50,000 or $10,000, things like that, right? The bottom line here is we want to make a super high quality project and create a product that's worthy of being on a top end streamer. We want to show people what this story is about at a high quality level. So, like, why would we try to force it down into something? I'd rather have the challenge of raising the money we need to make the thing we want to make that will actually serve the community. Because I think there's a greater goal here too, which is exposing 1999 to a new audience. You know, continuing to you know, keep that fan base excited and really bringing it to light. I think in some ways this could be the greatest time for 1999 since the 1970s, right? And who knows, maybe if this goes well, more things could happen. Who knows? Maybe we could end up doing something bigger or greater. I think we're showing our potential for that. I mean, first we've got to get this documentary made. So that's the first thing I want to address, is the fact that $500,000 to make something of this type is actually a reasonably low budget, actually, for the quality of what we're trying to produce. So I wanted to make sure people knew that. The other thing that I want to talk about too is that there's some people who are going to our Kickstarter page, and we've had far more positive response to what we've got on our Kickstarter pages than negatives. But the one thing that I want to address in terms of the negatives are, you know, this is not a Kickstarter itself. The company, this thing, this entity of Kickstarter, tries to make it very clear to people that it's not a store.
Yeah.
You know, it's like people are on there actually trying to get projects made, trying to get products developed. They're trying to do this, right? So part of this is we're not, you know, I think in this world of Amazon and quick fulfillment and low prices and everything, I think everyone wants to get something, right? And you know, get it cheap, get it fast, right? Yeah. The bottom line is when we're trying to raise money, we have to have a margin. We're not, you know, we talk about a coffee table book in there. Well, we're not in the book business, we're in the film business. Now we can make a great book. We actually are very good at that, right? But we're still not in that business. So if we make a book, we actually have to have a margin that allows us to actually make the film as well. Because we can't just spend all the money producing the book, right? It's that kind of thing. It's just like someone saying, well, $50 for a DVD, a Blu-ray, you know, it's like, that's a lot of money. It's like, well, yeah, but we also have to make the Blu-ray. We have to, you know, ship, you know, produce the packaging, put it together, ship it, the whole thing, right? If we want to have some sort of margin that allows us to actually apply it toward the production of the film, we have to put it at a price that allows us to get that done and make that happen, right? So I mean, because obviously we could put it on there for $5, but then we're just giving it away and we're not making a movie. You know, it doesn't make sense. So I mean, those are the kind of things that I want to make sure we dispel some of those questions and concerns, so people understand, like, why is it like this? Why are some of our rewards at the level they are? Is because we're trying to raise money. We're trying to create a quality product. It's I think my business partner Ron, he said, he was joking. He said, it's like we're trying to make a Cadillac, and we're not trying to make a Cadillac for the price of Chevy.
Yeah.
We're trying to innovate a Cadillac. We're not trying to make a top end Cadillac, but we're trying to make it work.
No, and it's true, and you're being very transparent, and which is really good, because folks will have those questions, because essentially they're going to go there and they're going to see it, and they're not going to be thinking to that level. And when you're out there describing and everything and putting it out there, there's behind the scenes costs that are associated with it. It's not just that this gets produced. I mean, the money is to help raise the Kickstarter. So it's not just that this is a store where you can get this merchandise. There's a reason
for not at all.
Items being put out there, and that's
the
way you're explaining is very important.
Absolutely. And not to mention the fact that we're making these things, we're not mass producing them, right? It's not like we're mass producing them for millions of customers. This is going to be a small run of these sorts of things. So it's expensive, so that's all. And I know, and like I said, I don't blame people for asking these questions. And I hope I don't come across as being, negative or defensive about it. I just want to make sure people can understand, because I understand, I know they have questions about it. And I know that they look at it and it's like, whoa, 500,000, that's a lot. That's a lot. And it's like, well, not really. It may be a lot for Kickstarter, but you know what? I mean, think about all the things we spend money on as a culture. People spend billions on Halloween candy. People spend billions on cosmetics. They spend, right? You know what I mean? It's like we can find $500,000 to make this documentary. You know what I mean? It's possible. It's totally possible if we all work together and figure it out. We totally can do it. So I think it's worth doing, and I hope the fans will support us and believe in it and help us get it done.
Yeah, and any type of contribution is appreciated, and it will
Absolutely
go towards this. So no matter if you're giving a small amount or a large amount, whatever you can do, it's very much appreciated, and it will help benefit this project.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing I want to add is that we had the shot, as you know, Roy, to try to push this as a Hollywood production,
right?
To make a documentary. But you know full well from the conversations we've had, the feedback that I got from the Hollywood studios was, yeah, we might fund this, but if we fund it, we don't really want it to be about the Eagle. The Eagle would have been about, 5% of the story. And then the rest of the story would have been about celebrities and what celebrities think of the whole thing. And that's what they wanted to do. And they were not interested in the fan story here at all. That was it was just I think they might have been fine if I made some part of it that made fun of the fans. Do you know what I mean? Like here's boy, isn't it quirky that these people like their little spaceships? I think they absolutely could have made a documentary like that in Hollywood. You know what I mean? Right. So that's the other thing here is by doing it independently, we have creative control to actually tell a real and true heartfelt story from a fan perspective for the fans.
And if you have the opportunity to go through the outline, which is listed if you go to www.eagledocumentary.com, you will see a breakdown of what the documentary is going to entail. And it really encompasses anyone that is a fan of the Eagle, of Space 1999 will enjoy. And it's really going to be the movie that the fans are going to want to see. And that's why it's really important that this message gets conveyed to everyone, and everybody has the opportunity to be a part of it. Because as you said, at the end of the day, I mean, $500,000 for this type of movie is not a lot of money, especially in terms of producing a film in Hollywood. And it's crazy.
And we're doing motion picture quality, 2 camera shoots on 2 cameras on every shoot, perfect sound. We're doing real high quality visual effects and in 4K. I mean, it's all but that stuff costs money. Doing real color correction, real soundtracks and audio sweetening and all that stuff. It's not something you just throw together. So, and we've got it down to the bare minimum we can do it for. So we're gonna go for it and make it happen.
One question I say that came in now. Claudia is just asking a question, and she just said, Jeffrey, regarding the short window for funding, just 30 days, is that something that's just typical of?
Well, here's the thing. Thanks for that question, Claudia. I think the issue is this: the biggest struggle. One of the things that's been really, really challenging and frustrating to me with this process is that Kickstarter, there's a psychology to it, and quite often, when you have a campaign that lasts 60 days, for example, or 45 days, it's like people will go and look at it and they'll be like, oh, okay, well, I can do that later, right? Or they look at it and they said that. So when you look at the statistics, we had looked at a lot of statistics, and we're actually working with Kickstarter. Kickstarter likes this project a lot, and they're getting involved in helping us market it and move it forward. They really like it, which is fantastic and a real honor. But the bottom line is they told us, like, you should make it 3 weeks, and I'm like, well, we can't do 3 weeks. We got to give people at least time to see this thing and get it out there and market it and get into the press and that sort of thing. So that's why I set it at like 30 days, 31 days, as opposed to, but what happens once you start getting out into the 45 to 60 day range? I mean, I completely agree that logically you would think more time gives you a chance to raise more money. But what happens is psychologically people lose interest, or it wanes, it falls apart. And that's almost consistently the longer campaigns fail. That's what we were told. So I went ahead and kind of, went for it and said, let's limit it down to around 30 days. So that's kind of how that ended up happening. So
that was a good question. Thank you, Claudia, for asking that.
Yeah.
Now, so, well, folks, if you have any other questions, please feel free to, post them out. And then what I will do is I will relay the information to Jeffrey, and then I will be able to get back to you in regards to that then. But Jeffrey, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to come on and give an update. And, we'll definitely do this as the time is, progressing through the Kickstarter, because we really want to, definitely want to see this happen. This is going to be incredible. So
I think that's great. One thing that I wanted to ask you guys, and I'm just going to ask it right here kind of on the air. Would you guys be open to doing some sort of a special show where we just kind of talk? I'd love to kind of talk about my favorite episodes of Space 1999. And the reason why is, we're doing this thing specifically about about the Eagle, right? But I really would like to share and keep the conversation going about how much, I love 1999 itself, especially the first season. The first season was really my thing. But I'd love to do a special show just to talk about the best of 1999. I think it'd be a lot of fun, if you guys are open to that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. No, that would be pretty cool.
Okay.
So we'll definitely plan on it. Would you want to do that within the next couple of weeks, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd like to do it. I'd like to do it soon. Keep the conversation going while we're working on this. And we could also talk about UFO as well, which would be a lot of fun too. That'd be. I've always wanted to have that conversation with you guys on. Yeah. So.
No, I definitely love it.
And Ross, I've missed you, man. I haven't seen you in a while. So
yeah, I've been gone in August, or we both have been gone in August, kind of, on and off. So thank you.
So it's good to see you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad the three of us got to reconnect like this. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for the time. I really, really appreciate it. So,
sure.
No, thank you so much, Jeffrey. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope you guys will post the link to the Kickstarter and in there. And again, my goal is get it made, so we would love to, you can make a donation like at the $25 level, and you can get the digital access at 4K when we get it made and completed, which will be by like next summer. And then we'll also have a 4K Blu-ray, like an UHD. So, okay.
No, very cool. And and in fact, I put the link for eagledocumentary.com out there into the chat, so folks can go to that, and then that will take them to the Kickstarter too as well.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, guys, great seeing you as always, and thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed being able to talk about Galactica for a little bit. That was really good.
Yeah, thanks for coming on a little early with us too, Jeffrey.
Yeah. Okay. All right, you guys take care of yourselves.
You too.
Right. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cool. Alrighty, I'm just gonna go through the shout outs real quick, folks, and then if you have any last minute comments, please post them out. And real quick, bear with me 1 second here. Just want to give Mike and Mary Beth a quick shout out for Sci-Fi Distilled. They are on Wednesdays and they are at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And their next show will be on September 20th, which is Vince's birthday. Vince is not out there tonight, but Vinny will be turning the age of Aquarius. Anyway, actually he's double digits. Now, Mike and Mary Beth are going to be doing a comedy night, and they're going to be talking about the 2004 film Dodgeball, a true underdog story. So you can catch that with Mike and Mary Beth, Sci-Fi Distilled. Again, they're going to be doing a comedy one-off, and that'll be on Wednesday night. In regards to Country Gate Players, they are in the season of 2023. This is going to be their third show, and their second show of the season, which is going to be Steel Magnolias, and that will be in the end of, I believe, October into November. For information regarding tickets, you can go to www.countrygate.org, or you can visit Bill Scarato's website, which is www.billscarato.com. And Captain Phil's Planet, WSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook, New York. The captain's schedule is on alternating Thursdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. He is also on Friday nights between 9 and 11:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. In fact, Jeffrey is going to be on with Captain Phil, and I will give an update in regards to that once it has been confirmed. Also, next, I just want to give a shout out to the folks at Trek Talking, a Star Trek podcast. Thank you for your support of this show. We really very much appreciate it, and you definitely can check them out. And they broadcast on Facebook. And again, it is Trek Talking. And also want to give a shout out to Snow and Martha in regards to Studio One Thrift. They actually have a new physical location that's going to be opening up at the end of September. And to register for their website, you can go to www.studioonethrift.net. Be sure to subscribe to receive updates. And they are the owners, and they showcase a lineup for all seasons, all year long, for quality, stylish, affordable clothing for men and women. And again, you can receive styling tips as well. Ross, if you can let everybody know what you have down the pike in regards to your shows.
Sure. It's getting late, so I'm just going to say, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, sounds like a duck, my show's on there. It's on Quacks. KWAX, Classical Oregon. And Roy's got the URL there in tiny print. If you follow my Facebook page, you'll get all the updates. I preview the shows when they're going to air, and you'll be able to get the news right from me at Classic Ross Amico. So I won't go through everything. Those are the times you'll note it's Pacific daylight time. So it's 3 hours, difference from here on the East Coast. But that's where you can hear the shows right now is at KWAX, Classical Oregon, or Quacks, if you will. And again, my website's Classic Ross Amico, or my Facebook page. So follow me there, and you'll be able to find out more about the movie music show, Picture Perfect, and the unusual and neglected classical repertoire show, The Lost Chord. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Thanks, Ross.
I'm tired of that enough.
I put kwax.uoregon.edu into the comment section so folks can check it out.
All right.
And just to let you know, folks, Ross and I will be back next Friday, September 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Stay tuned. We have not posted as far as the show we will be doing as of yet. We will have it posted by Tuesday. So I just want to thank
just randomly by Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Not tomorrow, Tuesday.
Exactly. Tuesday's
so hang in there.
Yeah, saying we'll surprise you. But anyway, folks, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. It was an awesome discussion in regards to Battlestar Galactica. I was very excited about discussing this with Ross, and I'm so happy that Jeffrey Morris actually got to come on with us a little early to talk about Battlestar Galactica, as well as give an update about the Eagle Has Landed documentary. And again, it's going to be pretty awesome. So definitely make sure you visit the website at www.eagledocumentary.com. There's also going to be follow-up podcasts that he's going to be doing. As he said, he's going to be on with the modeling community next week. I'll definitely post links for that. For now, live long and prosper. Have a wonderful evening. And
what's left of it.
Happy 45th anniversary for Battlestar Galactica. And we will see you next week.
See you
Take
next
care.
week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.